All right, welcome back, True Seeker. It's Gematria Effect School lesson number 7. Again, if you're new here, just want to make sure you know how to use the Patreon page and how it works. Every time I upload something, it becomes the top post, and the next oldest post gets pushed down. So if you just scroll down through the page, you'll find Gematria Effect School lesson number 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on. And if you go a little bit further down than that, you'll find the Letters and Numbers ebook. Again, one of the files to download is the cover art if you want to take the book to a bindery and have it printed with a normal cover. If you don't need the cover art, just download this second file here that's the .pdf. Again, this document's nearly 800 pages long, so if you do want to print it, it is a lot to print, but you also have the option of breaking up the PDF. The first 5 chapters are really the introduction to the knowledge. You could just print out those first 5 chapters, then it wouldn't be so overwhelming. But I do recommend everyone take the time to read the first 2 chapters, which is about 50 pages. It'll really help you out with the knowledge. Also, if you have the time, definitely watch the first 2 Gematria school lessons. The first 2 lessons, very important. And those 2 lessons, if you're fluent in those lessons, it'll help you with what we're going to talk about tonight, how to decode sports. So, again, you're watching this video right now, but when you're done, you can always go back and watch this video over if there's something you missed or wanted to review. And again, you can scroll down to the older posts to find more. And also, you'll notice just a couple posts down, I linked some gentlemen's pages, Rods and Victors. They're students of this work. They've been a part of this community for a long time. I passed the torch to them at the beginning of the year to let them take over the sports decoding because I wanted to finish writing a book I'd been working on, which I'm still not finished with, and now I've started working on a shorter book, also having to do with this whole coronavirus outbreak. So it's just been, this year it feels like I've been on a treadmill where the speed just keeps getting faster and faster and faster, and you just can't stop even though you're already tired. But I'm trying to keep up, and trying to juggle a bunch of things at once. So anyhow, that said, let's talk about tonight's lesson. Tonight's lesson is important even if you don't like sports, even if you have no interest in gambling. The reason tonight's lesson is important is because sports and news are scripted together. And a big part of the purpose of having this knowledge is to help wake up the people around you, friends and family, to what is going on in the world, how it is being done ritualistically by a code. And you can see how sports and news are directly connected by understanding this knowledge. And we've been proving that systematically for 7 years. And just before I go any further, for all the trolls who spend 24/7, 365 on this page, lying, slandering, discrediting, you guys are welcome to call in tonight and try to make a logical argument and explain to me why you guys spend $5 a month just to troll. I mean, I'm being facetious. I know why you're here. You probably work for the leagues. But again, if you guys, if you want to have a debate and try to disprove what we've already proven rock solid for 7 straight years, again, it might be some entertainment value to that. So you are welcome to call in when we're done with the lesson part. But let's just start with the most recent sports event. UFC 249, which just took place this Saturday, and which out of that event came a coronavirus story. And even before the story had happened with the coronavirus, a lot of people had asked me what I thought about the top fight, and I told them what I said at the beginning of the year. 222 is going to be the number of the year, and we saw it even before the Wuhan Coronavirus started. And again, just in case you're brand new here, let me take you back to Super Bowl 54. And you can go back and watch the video. It's still up. Super Bowl 54. There was a very clear riddle in numbers. You didn't even need Gematria. And CBS made it all the more clear after the game. We learned something even more about the number we were already looking at once the game was over. But what we saw long before the Super Bowl was played was that Andy Reid, the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, could get his 222nd win. 222. And he could get it in the Super Bowl on the date February 2nd, 2020. 2-2-2-0-2-0. A bunch of twos, right? And the other thing that we noticed is that from when the Kansas City Royals won the World Series Again, he's the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. From when the Kansas City Royals won the World Series over the New York Mets, from the day they won it to the day the Super Bowl was scheduled was exactly 222 days. And then on top of that, after the game was over, CBS made a Instagram post about Andy Reid's 222nd win and how he defeated the 49ers, who had the highest payroll in the NFL, which was $222 million. I think it actually said $222.2 million, all twos. And we weren't even aware of that part before the Super Bowl, but just the 2-2-2 ritual was too much to ignore. Plus, the 49ers got their second Super Bowl loss, the Chiefs got their second Super Bowl win, and there were a few other twos scrambled in there. But again, a lot of times you will see that there's a number that shows up in the Super Bowl, and then that same number, it just persists throughout the year, from sports to news. And there's been a number of other 222 rituals. Just one off the top of my head, the Baylor college basketball coach, he got his 222nd career win on February 22nd this year. There's been some others, but I haven't been keeping up with the sports as much, so they're slipping through the cracks. Anyway, a lot of people were messaging and saying, what do you think about this UFC fight? And I said, well, look at the top fight. The guy who's the underdog, he can become 22-2. And of course, Wuhan Coronavirus equals 222. And we've been talking about all the riddles with the Wuhan Coronavirus and 222. And then right before the fight, coronavirus becomes the news because one of the fighters, Ronaldo Souza, is booted from the fight because he supposedly tested positive for coronavirus. And again, when you're aware of this knowledge, you can see how the numbers that they encode in these stories, they're a ritual. Case in point, Ronaldo Souza. If you're new here, Gematria. And just before I even explain this, I just want you to know something. When you look at these ciphers right here, years ago, the only ciphers I knew were the alphabetic order and the alphabetic order with the rules numerology, and it almost felt like it was easier to decode sports when I just knew those two ciphers. Learning the reverse has definitely been helpful in some ways, but the downside of having reverse gematria is it does give you a few extra numbers to debate on, which sometimes can cause a conflict. So I'll just let you know, if push comes to shove, if there's a number that you're looking for in an event and it's in this dark blue cipher, this alphabetic order with the rules numerology, it's usually the number to take over all other numbers. But anyway, just look at the name Souza. In the values, these are the 4 base ciphers, the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology, the reverse alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. In these 4 base ciphers, Souza has 82, 53, and 26. Like COVID-19, which he supposedly tested positive for, is 82, 53, and 26. And his name also has 19 in it, right? They call the thing COVID-19. But the better part was that from his birthday, which is Pearl Harbor Day, to the fight on May 9th, which he was kicked out of for supposedly testing positive for coronavirus, it was 5 months and 3 days, like Souza and COVID-19, but it was 155 days. And that's been a huge number with the coronavirus ritual. Just using the alphabetic order, coronavirus is 155. And the top fight, the marquee event, was between two guys weighing 155 pounds. And that's not an accident. That is all part of the ritual. And again, we've been documenting 222 all over the place with the coronavirus stories. 222 was the number in the Super Bowl. And the fighter who had the chance to become 22-2 did. And again, just a lot of people asked me, just in the comment section, when I caught the comment, I just responded. I just said, look at the top fight and look for the 222. And a lot of people said thank you afterwards. They said, I went with that 222 thing. You were right. And it was a nice little upset. So, if you bet 100 on Justin, you made 180. So again, understanding how sports are rigged, it takes understanding the code, and in some cases, it takes understanding what's going on in the news cycle and how it syncs up with the sports. And we're going to come back to this UFC 249 fight, but still to date, and it might be 50 years from now, and it might still be my favorite example of all time, a few years back, when North Carolina defeated Gonzaga in the college championship, that was a year where we were dead on with the ritual before the tournament even began. And what was going on in the news was you had the bathroom bill being, here, let me just type out bathroom bill in Gematria real quick. You had the bathroom bill being debated. Oh, hold on. Make sure okay, there we are. Sorry, for a second I thought I was showing you guys the wrong window. Okay, so the bathroom bill was the big news story. And notice in this cipher right here, bathroom bill is 71. So the bathroom bill was a big story in the news cycle. And if you can remember, it was about who could use the bathroom in the Carolinas. Could transgender people choose whichever restroom they wanted to use? And because of the outcome of the bathroom bill, the NBA punished the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. They took away the NBA All-Star game from Charlotte. And when that happened, I said, just watch. They're going to reward the Carolina teams in college basketball because we saw how the bracket for March Madness was coming out on the 71st day of the year. And, you know, that year North Carolina and Gonzaga were among the top teams. North Carolina looked like the best shot in the men's bracket to be the winner, to take advantage of this Carolina riddle. And it made a lot of sense for them to beat Gonzaga that year because Gonzaga had the Gematria of 71. And their nickname, Gonzaga Bulldogs, their full name is also 71. And if you go back and look at the box score of that game, and we'd spelled all this out before the tournament even began. North Carolina to beat Gonzaga in the bathroom bill ritual makes a lot of sense. And North Carolina did defeat Gonzaga. And not only did they defeat them, but they won in the championship game with 71 points. And my other advice in that tournament before it even began is I said I would ride Carolina teams hard, men and women, because I said I just think the Carolinas are going to get rewarded because they were both connected to this whole bathroom bill controversy. And you might recall, South Carolina, the men's team, made the Final Four for the first time in their program history that year. And then in the women's bracket, the South Carolina Gamecocks won the championship. And if you watched their games, they were referred to as the Lady Cocks all throughout the tournament. You know, the Lady Cocks. Just think about it. The Lady Cocks win the women's tournament when the whole riddle's around the bathroom bill. If the transgenders can use whatever restroom they want. And then you got the Lady Cocks winning the championship. So, again, by understanding what's going on in the news cycles, how it relates with sports, understanding these numerical codes and seeing things like, okay, the bathroom bill's hot in the Carolinas, the March Madness tournament's coming out on the 71st day of the year this year. And by the way, March Madness also has that Gematria of 71. This year, 2020, on the 71st day of the year was when they made the announcement that there would be no fans at March Madness. That was also the same day the NBA season was canceled. And you'll learn with this code that there is a huge Catholic Jesuit theme with all the sports. College and pro, Catholics got that 71 connection as well. So, again, being aware of what's in the news cycle and seeing what they're doing with sports and how numbers overlap, again, you can see through the riddles. This year, March 11th was the 71st day of the year. That was the same day the coronavirus pandemic was declared. Coronavirus pandemic 113, March 11th, 11/3. That was the same day the National Basketball Association suspended play. Hold on, let me type here. Keyboard is bad. National Basketball Association 113, like March 11th. And remember, it was a 7'1" guy, right, on the 71st day of the year, Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz, the only team in the league whose full name equals 113. The only other 113 connection you have in the NBA is the city of Dallas, and they scored 113 points on March 11th, not by accident. But again, understanding the code, seeing through the riddles. And just remember what we did last year with the college basketball tournament. We had the story of Justin Fairfax. And here, just let me pull this up from last year. Justin Fairfax, 2019, the lieutenant governor of Virginia. A news story came out about him allegedly raping a woman back when he was a student at Duke. And the news story came out the day before Duke and Virginia played each other in college basketball. So again, just being mindful of what's going on in sports and seeing what's going on in the news, you just see how these stories come together. And what I advised people the day of this story was to bet, again on the Patreon, I told people to put in a future for either Duke or Virginia to win the college basketball championship. So put in a future for both teams, because I knew it was going to be Duke or Virginia. And I just want you to go back and witness exactly what we said. So this is the original post. We pointed out how his name, Justin Fairfax, equals 85 like basketball. And the original March Madness was in 1985. And this year on May 8th, the NBA allowed teams to begin practicing basketball again on May 8th, 8-5. They can also be written 5-8. It was 58 days after they suspended play. Utah's 58, the team they suspended it over. Kobe Bryant's 58, who played his last career game against Utah and who's been the biggest story of this NBA season because he died. Anyhow, Justin Fairfax 85, basketball 85, and we pointed out that the day that the news broke was 39 days before the start of the tournament, which mattered because Blue Devils has the connection to 39, and he was accused of raping a woman who went to Duke, the Duke Blue Devils, the day before these teams played each other. And then we also pointed out that the championship was scheduled for April 8th, 59 days after his birthday, and Justin Fairfax is 59. Now, if you go back and look up the box score for when Virginia won the championship against Texas Tech on April 8, 2019, you will see that they scored 85 points, and they did it on 59 shots. And here, we can just do it real quick. Virginia, Texas Tech, box score, April 8th, 2019. And again, this stuff blows my mind too. I mean, it just blows my mind how they pull this stuff off. It blows my mind. But 85 points, and here, let me get the box score up here. Stats. Okay, so there's Virginia. Virginia shot 27 of 59 from the field and scored 85 points. And this was the post that we did 2 months before it, saying why it's going to be Virginia or Duke. And for people who don't want to put it on two teams, before the tournament began, we narrowed down why Virginia looked like the better team to win it, which was good news because they paid a lot better than Duke. Duke was a favorite. Virginia ended up being near the top too, but they still paid a lot better than Duke did. And again, here's just some notes on that. So yeah, this was the... You might recall Nipsey Hussle died, and when Nipsey Hussle died, there was a lot of images of him wearing a Texas Tech jersey, and he'd just been at the Texas Tech game right before his death. So again, that was another ritual that factored into all of this. But, and by the way, Duke beat Virginia 81-71 the day after the news story. Virginia got 71, that March Madness number, right? And then when they finished the season, they finished 35-3. Like 353, the 71st prime, their record to end the season. But the reason that when the tournament began, the new information we had right before the tournament began was we were watching the coach of Virginia. We were waiting to see if he would go into the tournament with 88 losses or 89. And he ended up going into the tournament with 89 losses. And the reason that matters is because Virginia's 89. And their nickname is the Virginia Cavaliers, which is also 89. And notice, those are in those two ciphers that I've always taught from the beginning, the alphabetic order and the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. Both ciphers are definitely important, though. Virginia Cavaliers is also 118, like Texas Tech Red Raiders is 118, and that was a number that was all over in 2019 with sports. Again, that's another topic. Texas Tech Red Raiders also has the 89 connection as well. They end up playing the Virginia Cavaliers. And Tony Bennett, though, because he went into the tournament with 89 losses, again, that looked good. It looked good for him to finish the season on 89 losses because it's a symbolic number. And this is the kind of stuff you'll find season after season, the rituals. So again, from college to pro, It's all scripted. And the way you solve the riddles and get ahead is partly by paying attention to what's in the news cycle, and also just understanding the significance of how these numbers relate to the teams and the sports that you're talking about. Case in point, Major League equals 108, right? With the alphabetic order, there's 108 double stitches on a baseball. And again, if you doubt any of these things, you're more than welcome to look them up. How many double stitches on a baseball? You will see the answer is 108, which means there's 216 individual stitches. And you might recall when the Cubs broke the 108-year drought the other year, which was something we were able to call in spring training. And part of the reason I had so much confidence, I'll rarely use the word guarantee on a pick, but that year in spring training, I did guarantee that the Cubs would win the World Series. And Gary the Numbers Goon all year was harassing me on Twitter saying I was going to be wrong, and he had to take about 5 mulligans on who was going to win the World Series, and even when it was down to Cubs and Indians, he still couldn't get it right. He picked the Indians, and as soon as the Cubs defeated the Indians, he launched a website called Gematria Fraud that was about attacking me. And I imagine some of the goons that are on my Patreon page that troll here all day work for him. But Gary the Numbers Guy charges people $5,000 for this exact information. And he's really bad at it. You know, he guaranteed the Ravens were going to win the Super Bowl last year. So, again, Gary the Numbers Goon, I'd stay away. He charges a lot. He does not have a good track record. He can't even pick the championships correctly when it's down to 2 teams. But, again, when the Cubs won, they beat Cleveland. And what's Cleveland? Cleveland's the 216 area code. And the trolls, they'll remind you that when I did say the Cubs would win the World Series in spring training, the team I picked for them to beat was the Houston Astros. And the reason I picked that is because it was the 112th World Series and Houston's 112. Well, once Houston was eliminated, before the playoffs even began, I said, okay, if they're not going to beat Houston, then they're going to beat the Cleveland Indians because of the 216 area code. And it was all about the stitches in baseball. And that's exactly what happened. And not only did we say that they would beat the Indians, but I said why they would beat them in Game 7 on November 2nd in the 112th World Series. Game 7 was scheduled for 11/2, like 112. The reason that mattered, not just because it was the 112th World Series, but because this code is all mathematics. Mathematics with the alphabetic order is 112. 1 plus 1 equals 2. And 108 also connects to geometry. Geometry with the alphabetic order is 108. And back then, I didn't even know reverse gematria yet. I knew it by the time the World Series rolled around, but at the beginning of the season when I made the pick, I didn't know it. But geometry is 108. Again, 108, a very special number. Very special number. It's a spiritual number, connects to a lot of faiths, connects to the distance from the moon to the sun to the earth. Again, they say that the diameter of the sun is the diameter of 108 Earths. So 108 Earths side by side is supposedly how big the sun is. And they say that from the Earth to the sun is 108 suns side by side. And they say that from the moon to the Earth is 108 moons side by side. So they say that's why you get the perfect geometry with the eclipse. And maybe that is correct. I got to admit, when I look up at the sun and the moon, man, it just seems so much closer than they say it is. But This is supposedly the official mathematics. So this 108 number has a lot of significance. Remember, gematria, what we're talking about here, the practice of coding numbers into words, means geometry and language. And I never type out that word enough. Let me see if I got it right. That is the word. So the plural of gematria is gematrio, which means that you have overlap in multiple ciphers. You have overlap in multiple ciphers. And, you know, so like a word like judge and gavel, for example. It's the exact same in all 4 ace ciphers. So it has a gematrio overlap in 4 ciphers. You know, witch and broom, the exact same in all 4 ciphers. You know. So gematrio, just the plural for gematria. And just remember, with regards to baseball, it is one of the most interesting ways to help wake up a sports fan to the relevance of the code because it's so easy to see. Baseball with the alphabetic order is 54, like how many outs there are in a game. Baseball with the alphabetic order and rules numerology is 18. That's how many half innings there are in a game. There's 9 innings in a baseball game. Each team gets a half inning, so 18 half innings. A lot of people know about Roger Maris, the New York Yankee, hitting 61 home runs in 1961. 61's the 18th prime number. Baseball's 162. That's now how many games there are in a Major League Baseball season. This is when you run the alphabetic order in reverse. And then when you run the alphabetic order in reverse with the rules of numerology, it's 54 again. And don't forget that Major League Baseball, with the alphabetic order, is also 162. And then again, it's 63. June 3rd is the 154th day of the year. Doubleday equals 154. American baseball is credited to the Freemason Abner Doubleday. The term Grand Slam equals 154. If you go back to June 3rd, 2017, the 154th day of the year, the MLB set a major league record for most Grand Slams in a day on the 154th day of the year, where Grand Slam is 154. The next value, the reverse alphabetic order, where it's 351, that's the 26th triangular number. Again, if you click on this, it'll pull up a window, which you can't see on mine because the way OBS is set up, it's just sharing. Or I know what I can do to show you how this works. Hold on, let me adjust something in OBS so you can see this. Okay, so when you click on 351, it pops up this window and it tells you about number properties. So it says that 351 is the 26th triangular number, which matters because that number connects to game. Game is 26. They call a baseball game a ball game, 26. So relevant. Baseball used to be, America's pastime, not so much anymore. And then there's other things like this. Major League Baseball is also 117. A few years back, Roy Halladay, a 2-time Cy Young winner, that's the big pitching honors in baseball, the guy who throws the ball, he died in a plane crash, supposedly off the coast of Holiday, Florida, and his name was Halladay, but he died on November 7th, 11/7, and that is the day leaving 54 days left in the year. Suspicious death, numerical ritual. And by being aware of these numbers, you'll be able to uncover riddles that come up in the season. So the other thing to say about all these numbers is in numerology terms, 1 plus 6 plus 2 is 9, 6 plus 3 is 9, 3 plus 5 plus 1 is 9, 1 plus 1 plus 7 is 9. Baseball is a game of 9 innings. 9 represents completion in numerology. If you write out Major League, it has Gematria of 108 like the double stitches, also 45. 45 is the 9th triangular number. You add 1 through 9 together, it equals 45. When the Cubs broke the 108-year drought, they hadn't been in the World Series since 1945. 1945 was their last World Series appearance. Notice the Gematria of Cubs has the 45 and 63 like Major League. So this is part of what made the Cubs the perfect team to do this Major League riddle with. They hadn't been in the World Series since 45. The name Cubs is 45 and 63, like Major League's 45 and 63, breaking the 108-year drought. And they play in Wrigley Field. Wrigley's got that 45 connection. So what you'll learn using this code and being aware of this knowledge with sports is you'll see how often certain numbers just play so strong for certain teams, certain cities. And you'll recognize that the value of some of these ciphers is a lot more redundant with certain teams. Case in point, one of my favorite riddles in all of sports is anytime it's relating to Minnesota in 52. You might recall Minnesota hosted Super Bowl 52. You just pay attention in Major League Baseball. A pitcher's coming into the game. His record's 5-1. Bank on him falling to 5-2. He comes in 4-2. Bank on him improving to 5-2. He comes in with 51 career wins. Bank on him picking up his 52nd career win. Minnesota in 52 is a very, very consistent pattern in sports. And same thing, like in the NBA, if the Lakers were going into Minnesota and they were going to have a chance to pick up their 52nd win or just whatever team, Bank on that. Minnesota in 52 is so consistent. Minnesota in 38 also plays, but for whatever reason, Minnesota in 52, it just seems to be the most consistent number with that city. One of my favorite riddles in all of sports. It can be any sport team that has to do with Colorado. If there's a 38 on the board with Colorado, it is gold. Colorado in 38. I want to say that most of these, there's no riddle that's 100%, but man, I literally cannot think of the last time a Colorado 38 riddle failed. Because realize, Colorado equals 38, but it's also the 38th state in order of statehood. This number is so true with sports. Again, same type of thing. Teams coming in for the 38th win, the 38th loss, pitcher getting his 38th win, quarterback getting his 38th career win, etc. Colorado in 38 is gold. If all you ever did for the rest of your life was just bet on a Colorado game where there's a 38 on the board, and you'd have to be patient and wait for them to come up, but they're going to come up plenty. I mean, I'm sure over the course of a baseball season with the Colorado Rockies, and let me show you something else about the Colorado Rockies. You see how their name's 163? That's the 38th prime number. The 38th prime. Make sure I still got that window up where you can see the whole screen. Okay. But just Colorado in 38, it's one of those gifts that just keeps on giving. And, these other numbers matter too. I mean, in the sports, you're usually going to see these lower end numbers because normally there's not like a chance for a team to get its 83rd win or 133rd win. But if you saw a quarterback going for like his 83rd career win or his 133rd career win, that's where these bigger numbers could matter. I remember a season ago with the Denver Nuggets, it was like they had played a team 133 days earlier and they had beaten them. And then they were playing them again, and they had like a chance at their 43rd win in the series. And we're like, okay, we can't pass that up. I mean, that just seems right there. They beat them 133 days ago, and now they can get their 43rd win against them all time. And sure enough, that is how it played out. So, again, this is why you want to be aware of these ciphers. And I'd encourage you that when you decode sports to just stick to these 4 ciphers. There are other ciphers that can matter, but if you just stick to these 4, you're going to see the majority of what you need to see. And again, it's just the more knowledge you have, the more you understand about the sports, the more you understand about what's in the news, the more success you're going to have with this. So it's about building up your base of knowledge. And there's a gentleman in this community, he might even call in tonight. I don't know if he needs the Gematria School sports lesson, but he might be out there. But he literally made a $25 parlay bet that paid over $10,000. And he hit on that just a few days after he hit on a $5 bet that paid nearly $3,000. And again, that's the beauty of this knowledge. The way he was able to pull that off is because before the MLB playoffs started last year, we caught at the end of the season when the Nationals and Indians were playing each other. And let me just pull up this post real quick so I can just show you instead of having to tell you all from memory. I remember pretty much everything, but I want you to see this. Let me see if this pulls it up right here. Okay, so we caught this on September 27th, 2019, which is the Jesuit Order's birthday. And again, speaking of Jesuits, they have a lot of influence in the world of sports. The Jesuits are connected to the Catholic Church, like the Knights Templar, where Skull and Bones get their symbolism from. So just think of it as like a cabal of secret societies putting down their stamp in riddles in these sports leagues. And this is what we caught. So Dave Martinez was he's the Washington Nationals manager. And what we noticed is, so this screenshot is taken just before this game was played. So he was going to play his 322nd game against the Cleveland Indians, and he was sitting on 149 career losses, okay? And we said, well, look at that. He's definitely going to win today because Skull and Bones equals 149, and there's no way that they're not going to pull off this riddle. Because the thing about Skull and Bones is there's the legendary story of Prescott Bush, the father of George Herbert Walker Bush, stealing Geronimo's skull, a Native American, an Indian, and he was playing the Cleveland Indians. There's the story of Prescott Bush stealing Geronimo's skull. And we're like, yeah, this is just too good. He will get this win today. He'll stay on 149 losses in his 322nd game. Now, the other thing that we've been documenting all year were these skull and bones riddles that were happening with the Rangers and the Astros. And the Bush family, who are Skull and Bones members, George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush and Prescott Bush, were all Skull and Bones. We've been documenting all season these riddles with Skull and Bones and the Astros and the Rangers. And the Bush family had connections with the Rangers and the Astros. And at this point in the season, the Astros were considered, front runners to win the World Series. So we said, wait a minute. Okay. We knew that the season was going to have to do with George H.W. Bush, because remember, he died November 30th, 2018, right after the last baseball season began. And one of the last times anybody saw him was when he was on the field posing with the Astros after they won the Hurricane World Series, which we'll talk about in a minute. That was the year Matt Harvey became the first pitcher to pitch in Houston right after the flooding of Harvey. Anyway, we said, wait a minute, we've been documenting these Skull and Bones riddles all year, and now the Nationals, because we hadn't seen a Skull and Bones riddle with any of the National League teams, right? We'd seen them with the American League teams, the Astros and the Rangers, but we hadn't seen any with the National League teams. But then it made sense, because we're like, well, wait a minute. Skull and Bones, Washington, D.C., this makes some sense. And, the Bush family connecting Texas and Washington, D.C., so we said right here, we said, you know what? We got to put a future in for an Astros and a Nationals World Series. And we were saying all season, again, there's a lot to explain, but all season we had it mapped out that who was ever in the World Series, it was going to go to Game 7. Because that was on the day leaving 62 days left in the year. And they did this huge riddle with the number 62 at the beginning of the season. So anyway, with a little bit more decoding, once the postseason was set, once we saw how the postseason was set, we saw how things could line up if the Nationals won the World Series. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. But Big Al, once the postseason was set, he put in a parlay with the Nationals beating the Astros in Game 7, which was just huge odds alone. I mean, you could have bet $5 on that, and it would have paid you a ton of money, because the Nationals were long shots at that point to win the World Series and even to be in it. But then, with his knowledge, he'd already picked out some UFC events with some low-hanging fruit. So he put together like a parlay card with like 7 fights on it that just looked like gimmies. Like just how this weekend, UFC 249, the biggest payout fight was a fight going for his 59th win on 5-9. And that's what you'll recognize. A lot of times just realizing that these things are rigged by numbers, you'll just be able to pick those easy ones out of the hat. Oh, wow, the best payout tonight's a guy going for his 59th win on 5-9. I think I'll put a few bucks down on that one. And that's exactly what it was this past weekend, UFC 249. But anyway, Big Al, he saw some fights like that mapped out, so he put them on a card. They all came through, and then he got this, and literally a $25 bet paid over $10,000. And I mean, that's a lot of money. In this town I live in right now, the average income in this town is $20,000 a year. That's because it's mostly migrant labor in this town. But I mean, that's the reality, If you make $20,000 a year and you can add $10,000 to your payroll by betting a little bit on rig sports, understanding how it's worked, I mean, that's life-changing. And Big Al, who calls into this program a lot, he'll tell you this knowledge has changed his life. He works a normal 9 to 5 like most of us, and he's been able to pad his income and have some nice extra spending money and some money to put away for savings from taking advantage of this knowledge. And, of course, he won again this weekend. UFC 249. He was up here protesting with me in Seattle, and he took a break on Saturday, and he put down a few bets, and he made nearly $2,000 Saturday, March 14th, to pay for his entire trip up here to come protest with me and raise awareness about Event 201 and fly back home to Arizona. I mean, he spent money to come up here and get the word out, and he went back home with even more money in his pocket, and he didn't have to bet a lot to do it. Because, again, that's the beauty of this knowledge. You don't have to bet a lot of money to get rewarding payouts. So anyway, coming back to this riddle, because this riddle was massive. The 322nd game, he stays on 149 wins against the Cleveland Indians. And So, again, the riddle with Geronimo's skull, what we noticed even before the game was played, our minds were just blowing the more we looked at this. Geronimo died in history on February 17th, right? And from February 17th to the day that this game was played in this 3-2-2 ritual was 223 days later. If you write out skull and crossbones as words, which is skull and bones symbol, it equals 223. But 223 is also the 48th prime in Cleveland's 48. And look at this. The Nationals were going for their 48th win that day. And the date numerology of that day had a life lesson number of 48. It was September 27th. Wait a minute. Let me make sure that's right. Yeah, that's right. So the date, I probably wrote it down here. Let me see. Yeah, I did. Okay, so the date numerology that day had a life lesson number of 48, right? Anytime in sports that the date numerology syncs up with the win number that somebody can get and the Gematria is there. So, for example, again, Cleveland equals 48, right? Anytime the date numerology is there and the Gematria is there that corresponds with the win number that can be picked up, notice the Nationals could get their 48th home win that day, and they did. That is always a really good sign as well. If you have the date numerology and the opponent Gematria to sync up, and it could also go the way of the loss too. Like, for example, if the Nationals could have got their 48th loss that day, I mean, that would have made a lot of sense as well. But in this case, it was the win. So there were just so many beautiful things in this game. So, I mean, this is the type of riddle that you live for when you do this decoding. And I'm never someone that, my advice to people is, first of all, honestly, I don't even really like gambling. But my advice, if you do gamble, is to always be the tortoise. You know, give yourself a budget, a limit that you bet each day, and just follow that. Because with this knowledge, you're going to win a lot more than you lose. And, you know, what will happen is, and if you go back and listen to live streams, you'll hear a guy and he'll call in and he'll say, man, Zach, I was killing it, man. I was up 20,000 over the last 2 weeks. And this riddle looks so good to me. And I put all 20,000 down because I wanted that 100,000. And I lost it all, man. How did that one not come through? And when people call in and say that kind of stuff, I'm just like, man, you guys, do not listen to me say be the tortoise and just keep building and not try to become a millionaire in a day, because that's how you lose it all. Because that's what I want to warn you, is sometimes there really is a golden riddle and you're like, oh, this is the one. And then it doesn't come through. And you're like, how did that one not come through? And it does happen sometimes. Now, you know, the guy who put down 20,000 was trying to go for 100,000. I mean, he wouldn't have got that kind of payout in this game. But in that way, I might sympathize with him if he just went out of his mind and bet a lot on this game. Because this type of riddle is like about as good of a riddle as you'll ever get. And these ones usually don't go bust. But sometimes there is really strong narratives that for some reason they don't fall apart. And in a moment, I'll talk about why that does happen sometimes. Because sometimes you see it in the next game, you're like, oh, God, how did I overlook how it sets up for the next game? But anyway, what else happened after this? After this game was played, so the next day had a life lesson number of 49, and the day after that had a life lesson number of 50. And notice, Washington equals 49 and 50, right? So after this game, which the Nationals did win, they got their 48th win over Cleveland on the 48 date numerology, 223 days from Geronimo's birthday. You know, setting up, you know, doing this skull and bones ritual, which again is a Masonic order, and Freemason equals 48. That's another thing. But then the next day, they got their 49th win on the 49 date numerology, and then they got their 50th win on the 50 date numerology, and then the postseason began. So they finished their season with this really strong numerology riddle. It had the skull and bones thing. We were already locked in with the Astros and the Rangers picking up these skull and bones riddles all year. And just to show you something, do you remember that George Herbert Walker Bush, let me spell it right, George Herbert Walker Bush, equals 118? 118, right? And he was the 41st president. When you write out 41, it equals 118. And when you write out skull and bones, it equals 41. And their symbolism, the skull and crossbones, comes from how Knights Templar buried their dead in an ossuary, which was 118. A riddle that we saw earlier in the year that was a great payout is the Astros were hot at the beginning of the season and the Rangers weren't, the two teams that connect to George Herbert Walker Bush, we saw that if the Rangers won, if they beat the Astros, God, I got to go back and look at what it was. Maybe the Rangers didn't start off that bad. I can't. I'm pretty sure it was either that they made. Man, I got to find that. Let me look this up real. It's going to take too long. It was one of these two things. I think what happened is the Rangers became 11-8 for the season and 9-4 at home by beating the Astros. And the thing was, the Astros were good favorites in that game because the Astros were off to a way hotter start than the Rangers. I think the Rangers were off to a decent start. So the Rangers came into the game, if I remember right, 10-8, and they were 8-4 at home. And I said to people, I said, this is the pick of the day right here. In light of all the George Herbert Walker Bush stuff, he just died at age 94, and now the Rangers, who the Bush family used to manage, can become 11-8, and George Herbert Walker Bush 118, dead at 94, and sure enough, they won, and that was a really nice payout type of game. So again, this is why I'm saying, by following the news and understanding the sports and having awareness of these secret societies and the numbers that matter to them and the dates and the rituals, it can pay big dividends, as we've continued to do over the years across college and professional sports. And, you know, to go back to all of the rituals with the Nationals when they won the World Series, the Nationals picked up their 105th win of the season when they won the World Series. And this was something we noticed before the postseason began, is that if the Nationals won the amount of games, because you know how many games a team has to win in the postseason to win the World Series, right? Because you have to win this many games for this playoff series, this many games for this series, this many games. So we said, okay, if the Nationals won enough games to win the World Series, they'd have 105 wins. They were making a big deal about how Washington, D.C. hadn't had a World Series since 1933, right? Masonry's 33, Federal's 33, Secrecy's 33, Order's 33, Bonesman's 33. We also saw that Game 7 of the World Series was 138 days after Donald Trump's birthday. 138 days. And the other thing we saw is Nationals equals 57. And what gave us extra confidence in the Nationals was that by the way the Astros lost in the postseason, so a lot of people hadn't made their bet until the World Series because they didn't know if they could trust the Nationals. But then what we saw is once the matchup was set between the Astros and the Nationals, the Astros were in position to pick up their 57th postseason loss all time if they lost the World Series. So they came into the World Series with 53 losses. By losing those 4 games to the Nationals, they picked up their 57th loss. And by the way, that's just a huge number every year with the World Series, because World Series in the most pure ciphers, 57. And with regards to George Herbert Walker Bush being a huge part of the World Series riddle, you see how World Series is 147? 94 is, when you write it out, is 147 and 57 like World Series. And another part of the reason, going back to the Cubs World Series, that I knew that they were going to win on November 2nd is because they had this huge ritual, the Chicago Cubs, 94 days before November 2nd. And I'm sorry, it was 2016, and I can't exactly remember what happened, but I just remember making that video because it was a walk-off hit, and it was like a guy with a 94 connection, and I was explaining the thing about 94 in World Series. I said, just watch, it's all lining up so perfectly for that date, November 2nd, which we'd been on all season. But and let me just stop you right here. I don't want to put you guys in bad practice. It's not always the best way to decode by like spelling out a number and getting its Gematria value. But there are some number relationships that matter, like 94 and 147, 13 and 45. There are some that matter, but don't go crazy. Don't start writing out what each number is and pulling out its numbers. It's hit and miss there with that information. But no doubt, George Herbert Walker Bush dying at 94, the year before the very Skull and Bones related World Series, that was not an accident. And Again, just to show you something else, I'm pretty sure Game 7 was October 30th. Let me see if that was the day leaving 62 days left in the year. Yeah, so Game 7 was on October 30th, the day leaving 62 days left in the year. And the team that lost that day was from Houston, Texas, which has the 62 connection. And you might recall the umpire who died at age 62 right before the World Series. His name was Eric something, which summed to 62. All right, maybe he wasn't 62 years old, but his name was 62. But here's what else I want to show you. Something else that we caught, because a lot of times you'll see this cross-sports scripting. So I got to admit it, I was sweating it out on October 30th about what I told people in the NBA, because I was very confident about the Rockets beating the Wizards. Box score, Rockets and Wizards. So you had the teams in the NBA from, Houston, Texas, and Washington, D.C. playing each other on the same day that Game 7 was scheduled for. So this was another big clue to us, right? And God, what was it? Mike D'Antoni got... there was some riddle with the win Mike D'Antoni got that synced up with the World Series too that was just mind-blowing. But this is what I want you to see. The end of this game was incredible. I remember it was a Wednesday night because I was doing my radio show, and I was like, man, I gave my people bad advice tonight because I told them the Rockets were going to beat the Wizards. The Rockets were down like 8 points with like a minute left in the game. I mean, how do you come back from 8 points when you're down with like a minute left? Because it was something like that. And I was like, how are they going to lose this game? But... again, this was right at the start of the NBA season, and you see how the Rockets improved to 3-1? I'm going to come back and show you something about the points they scored with the World Series. But Houston equals 31, and this is one of those numbers that plays so hard for Houston, 31. If you went back and watched our live streams from last year in sports when we were doing it every single day, there were so many games last year where Houston, they'd be like the home team, and they'd give up one run in the first inning, and we'd be like, okay, should we put in the bet right now that Houston's going to score 3 runs in the first and the score will be 3-1 at the end of the first? It happened so many times last year. The score in the first inning of a Houston game in Houston, 3-1, 3-1, 3-1. It was just like a broken record. But Houston in 31 is a huge, huge, huge number that plays hard. That was also a part of the reason we really liked Houston to become 3-1 in this game. But here's what I want to show you with the 159 points. I'm going to pull up the box score from the World Series and show you how many pitches the Nationals threw in the game. How many pitches do you think they threw? Let's see. World Series box score, October 30th, 2019. Oh, yeah, by the way, the score was 62 that day. On the day leaving 62 days left in the year, beating the team from Houston, Texas, where the umpire who died just before the season, or not just before the World Series started, his name equaled 62. And part of the 62 thing was with Ichiro's retirement at the beginning of the year. Ichiro's 62, and I'm forgetting some things. There was this big old 62 riddle that took place at the beginning of the year. I think the first game of the season... If you go back and look at the first game of 2019, Mariners equals 97, Athletics equals 97. I just spelled athletics wrong, but it is 97. Athletics 97, Oakland Athletics 97. If you go back and look at the first game of the year, which was played in Japan, which was part of Ichiro's farewell, the Mariners beat the Athletics 9-7. And again, not by accident. But there were these 62 riddles, and we saw how the last game of the World Series said, okay, we said from the very start of the season, the World Series will go to Game 7. And sure enough, it did. And not only that, but the score was 62, which I'd forgotten. But look at this. Look at this. Oh, where's the box score? Oh, and by the way, you guys, a lot of people started to get worried, right? Because remember the Nationals came out, and they won the first 2 games, which surprised everyone because all the experts said that the Nationals had no chance. It was the Astros World Series. But the Nationals, they took the first 2 games. Then they lost 3 straight, right? And then all the experts were saying, see, told you the Nationals have no chance. And a lot of people in the community, they started to sweat it out. They're like, this doesn't look good, man. The Nationals are not looking good right now. But what I told people, I said, man, all the riddles we talked about are still there. The 57 still there. Right now you got great odds because the odds went up huge again right here. So people made even more money who rode the Nationals. They just put down another bet on the Nationals right here because I forget what the odds became, like 8-1, something like that. Once they were down 3-2 because it looked like they'd lost the momentum. And then sure enough, the Nationals came back, won the next 2 games. And in this last game, again, I've been explaining this out to people for years, that all of these games are scripted to the last inch. I know it's mind-blowing, but how do I get to the pitching stats? Oh, I got to go down here. The Nationals, check this out. So the Nationals in Game 7, oh, shoot. What are they called? The Rockets scored 159 points in an amazing comeback for the ages that blew my mind. I was like, man. All right, October 30th, here we go. ESPN will have it. Box score. So there it is. The Nationals with 159 pitches on the night. Where did it go? Did I get rid of it? There it is. On the same night that the Rockets score 159 points. Now remember, the World Series, let me show you something. Again, Nationals is 138. Their manager, Dave Martinez, is 138. His name's also 57, like Nationals, like World Series. Like Federal's 138. Like Donald Trump is 138. And remember, Game 7 of the World Series was 138 days after Trump's birthday. And Donald Trump's also 159. And remember, Scottish Rite is 159, the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, which Washington, D.C. is named after the Scottish Rite Freemason George Washington. American baseball, American football, credited to Scottish Rite Freemasons. Walter Camp for football, Abner Doubleday for baseball. And with regards to football, don't forget that Patrick Mahomes, he won the Super Bowl 138 days after his birthday, and he played at what high school? White House High School in Texas. And remember how Donald Trump was at the Daytona 500 this year, you know, their Super Bowl, and the lead car, the guy who got to be the lead car for that Daytona 500, the event was 138 days after his birthday. So again, this is what I mean about following the patterns through sports as well, catching on to patterns, seeing like, wow, it's not an accident. How all the major sports, they're doing 138. And again, syncing up the sports with the president, that's something they do. Think about how Obama becomes president out of Chicago. What happens? The Chicago Blackhawks are all of a sudden the best team in the NHL. They just can't be kept out of the Stanley Cup. You know? Donald Trump. This year, you know, a lot of the riddles connected to him. And don't forget that when Donald Trump when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, they were playing San Francisco, which is the home of Nancy Pelosi. The Super Bowl was 54 days from Nancy Pelosi's birthday. We called it the Impeachment Bowl. And I'll show you something real quick. You see how impeachment's 107? Look at Washington Nationals. 107. The day that the Washington Nationals won the World Series was the day that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer brought the impeachment from behind closed doors on the exact same day. So the political theater was synced up with the World Series, and then it was synced up with the Super Bowl, right? All perfectly connected. All perfect riddle. Nancy Pelosi from San Francisco. And you know, just to transition real quick into this year's most recent Super Bowl, and again, for people who are waiting for me to teach you how to do things, again, right now I'm just trying to get your feet wet and help you understand it. So this is kind of a teaching moment, but I'm going to get into some real specifics ahead. But right now we're just going through recent examples, understanding how this works. So let me pull up something before I even talk about Super Bowl 54. Again, pay attention to what ESPN puts in their news. ESPN has been one of the greatest, ESPN's website's what I'm saying. Their website has been one of the greatest tools for me in figuring out rigged sports. And this was September 3rd. this thing that's about to pull up here, September 3rd, 2019. This was right before the NFL season kicked off. And this was on ESPN's front page. Year of the Black QB, right? And we said right here, we said, this is probably telling us the Super Bowl. Because we saw that they emphasized this phrase. They make the game exciting, right? And that phrase equals 112. And what we talked about that day is how Super Bowl equals 112 and Chiefs equals 112. And obviously the Chiefs were front runners to win the Super Bowl as they did. Plus in the offseason, there was a death of a former Chief on the 100th day of the year. It was the 100th NFL season. It was either May 4th or April 5th. Or, God, maybe it was even the 54th day of the year. It was one of those three things. But there was a Chief who died on a date with a 54 connection and a Chief who died on a date with a 100 connection, right? And it was Super Bowl 54, the 100th of the 100th NFL season, and the Chiefs hadn't won the Super Bowl for 50 years, and Chiefs is 50. But we saw this on day one, and we said they're probably telling us it all right here. And, you know, let me write out Super Bowl again. There was a story years ago that ESPN had on their front page. It was the year of Super Bowl 50. And, God, I cannot think of the number right now for what it was. I'd have to go back and find my old blog post. But ESPN kept it up on their page all year. It was about like 58 children from the state of Indiana named after Peyton Manning. And the length of the story, you know how ESPN, they'll show you like a screenshot and there'll be a video and it'll tell you how long the video was. The video was 1:31, right? So that was my first clue in that season that Peyton Manning was going to be there for his farewell tour, throwing wounded ducks all season all the way to a Super Bowl win. But anyway, ESPN will drop major clues in their stories, and when they emphasize phrases, you got to look at the numbers behind those words. So they make the game exciting. And between these two quarterbacks at the beginning of the year, you know, Mahomes was a lot more likely one to win the Super Bowl. And again, it had the 112 encoded like Chiefs and Super Bowl. And, you know, just the year before, Jared Goff was in the Super Bowl when he lost to the Patriots. Remember, Patriots equals 53, Los Angeles 53. That was a gimme. But the Super Bowl was 112 days after Jared Goff's birthday. So always a number that's important. The 383 is interesting as well because that's the 76th prime number. The 76th prime. And, of course, the Chiefs beat San Francisco, winning their first Super Bowl in 50 years. San Francisco 50, like how they hosted Super Bowl 50. So, and the last time San Francisco was in a Super Bowl was the Harbaugh Bowl, Super Bowl 47, where the two coaches were brothers, the Harbaugh brothers. John, the one with the 47 name, won Super Bowl 47 for the Ravens. But in that picture, you know, they're showing you, you know, Ravens who faced the 49ers in their last Super Bowl, and then the Chiefs end up beating the 49ers. And in light of them calling this the year of the Black QB, remember the way things played out. On the first day of Black History Month, Lamar Jackson was named the league MVP. First day of Black History Month. On the next day of Black History Month, Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl and was also named the Super Bowl MVP. And think about the other black quarterback who got a big league honor. The rookie black quarterback, Kyler Murray, for the Arizona Cardinals, got Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. So 3 black quarterbacks win high honors in the season that ESPN calls Year of the Black QB before the season's even begun. And again, when you start to look at this for what it is, scripted theater, you realize they're giving you clues. They're putting out the plot. They're putting out the narrative. And I made a mistake this year because we started off, what we recognized right away is that the AFC was most likely to win the Super Bowl this year. So we were right about that. We said whoever makes the Super Bowl, it should be the AFC's year. And you might recall at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of rituals with the number 103. And 103 is the 27th prime. And we saw that if the AFC beat the NFC, they would be tied at 27 Super Bowls apiece, and the 103 rituals were everywhere. And it was the first all-red Super Bowl this year. Notice red is 27 with the alphabetic order, 54 when you run the alphabetic order in reverse. Super Bowl 54, the first all-red Super Bowl where it gets evened up at 27-27. Remember the commercial for State Farm where Aaron Rodgers was seeing all red? It was like titled Aaron's Nightmare or something. State Farm was one of those 103, the 27th prime. The first game of the season, the score was 10-3, 103 days after the death of Bart Starr, who defeated the Chiefs in Super Bowl I. So all of this stuff was part of a narrative, a riddle, a script. Remember the quarterback that Bart Starr defeated in Super Bowl I for the Kansas City Chiefs? Oh man, I'm having a brain freeze right now. Oh, I cannot think of his name. Man. I can't believe I can't think of his name right now. I can't think of his name. The Chiefs quarterback who performed in Super Bowl I and who won the only Super Bowl for the Chiefs, Super Bowl IV, 50 years earlier, his name's going to come to me later. But remember, this Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the 49ers, it was exactly, Len Dawson, that's his name, Len Dawson. It was exactly 64 weeks. It was exactly 64 weeks after Patrick Mahomes beat Len Dawson's 1964 touchdown passing record. The Super Bowl was exactly 64 weeks after Len Dawson's 1964 touchdown passing record was beat. And the reason that matters is a few reasons. Kansas City Chiefs in the most pure cipher is 64. And I believe if you write out Native Americans, it's also 64. Yeah, Native Americans is 64 as well. If you write out San Francisco, no, it's not that. If you write out 49ers as a word, it's 64. And you see how when you run it in reverse, it's 62? If you look up the Chiefs' 3 Super Bowls that they've been in right now, Super Bowl 1, 4, and 50, here, I'll just show you. If you add up the points they've scored and the points that have been scored against them, the Chiefs have now scored 64 points in Super Bowls and had 62 scored against them. And they just won that most recent Super Bowl over the 49ers, scoring 31 points. Chiefs 31. And in the 50-year drought, you know. But look at this. Super Bowl I score. Let me just do a few tabs here. Super Bowl IV score. And Super Bowl 54 score. Okay, so Super Bowl I. Oh. So the Packers won 35-10, right? That was Super Bowl I. Super Bowl IV, the Chiefs won 23-7. So let's add it up. So the Chiefs, in their first 2 Super Bowls, had scored 10 and 23 points. So they'd scored 33 points in their first 2 Super Bowls. And in their second Super Bowl, well, in the first Super Bowl, they had 35 scored against them. In the second one, they had 7 scored against them. So they had 42 points scored against them, right? So they've scored 33 and had 42 scored against them. Interesting numbers, right? Now, their third and latest Super Bowl, these are the 3 they've been in today, they win 31-20, right? So they'd scored 33, plus 31 more is 64. And they had 42 scored against them. They had 20 scored against them in the 2020 Super Bowl. So 62. And again, 49ers, their latest opponent. And again, you can go through the entire history of Super Bowls and just see how these riddles are everywhere. And the more you look at it, the more you analyze it, the more you're going to pull out. So, again, we were well aware of the 64 thing. With regards to the Native Americans thing, prior to this Super Bowl, the only 2 black quarterbacks to have ever won a Super Bowl were Doug Williams of the Redskins, who's 64 years... Let me see if he's had a birthday since the Super Bowl. He was 64 at the time of the Super Bowl. Let me see. Yeah, he's still 64 years old. So the first black quarterback to ever win the Super Bowl, Doug Williams. Remember, he scored 42 points in that Super Bowl. He set an NFL Super Bowl record. He had 4 passing touchdowns in the second quarter, 4-2. The only other black quarterback to win after Doug Williams was Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks, who are named after Chief Seattle and who have the symbolism on their helmet of the local Native American tribe. Washington State's the 42nd state. And then in this most recent Super Bowl, you had Patrick Mahomes win. And how many passes did Patrick Mahomes have in Super Bowl 54, he had 42. His 42nd pass was the one how they aired out the clock at the end of the game. And Jeremy was sitting next to me laughing all the way to the bank, man. Jeremy drove all the way out from Texas. I was down in New Orleans educating about the LSU Rig Championship and all the murders down there for it. And Jeremy drove all the way from across the other side of Texas to come out and join me in Pound Pavement. And we did take a break that night, and we watched the Super Bowl, and Jeremy had some money on it. And I got to admit, man, Jeremy had his money on the Chiefs because that's who we were riding with. And I got to admit, man, it was looking like the Chiefs are going to lose, and I was feeling bad because, it's like, man, Jeremy's got his own mind and does great work himself, no doubt about it. But, I mean, in a way, I was riding with the Chiefs too, so I was feeling responsible at the time. I was like, man, are we going to be wrong about this Chiefs one? But sure enough, in rigged and scripted format, they put up all those points in the end and came back and won it. And a lot of times these games, they are made to be nail-biters, right? They're made to keep everybody in anxiety, on the edge of their seat, watching all the commercials. And, of course, that's what they did with the Super Bowl. And I'm almost tempted to run to the other room to show you the T-shirt I was wearing at the bar for the Super Bowl. I had on my Seattle Seahawks Russell Wilson Super Bowl 49 T-shirt where it says Russell Wilson's 21st pass was intercepted by number 21 with 21 seconds left on the down 2nd and 1 on the date 2/1. And then in the beginning, or at the bottom of the thing, it shows Gematriot, and it shows how the word pick equals 21. 7 plus 9 plus 3 plus 2, just the most pure cipher. P7, I's 9, C's 3, K's 2. Pick 21. If you notice in Super Bowl 54, the first interception of the game was to number 21. And then the other interceptions were just as laughable too. I think there was one to number 54, maybe one to number 49. Oh, man. But anyway, the jokes are so sick, you guys. I mean, just putting the 42s on it, you know what 42 represents? Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl. Patrick equals 33 in the most pure cipher. The Super Bowl was on the 33rd day of the year. By the way, the only other Super Bowl that was ever on the 33rd day of the year was the one that Russell Wilson won. That was Super Bowl 48. Seahawks equals 48. They beat the team from Colorado with 43 points. Seattle Seahawks 43. Colorado 43. Football 43. American football credited to the Scottish Rite Freemason from Yale. Yale 43. Bulldogs 43. Somebody called us up the other week and said that where they have the big football game, the Yale Bowl each year, you take the exit off Highway 43 to go to the game. So, anyway, every Super Bowl, you can just go through all of them and just see what the riddles were, why it was rigged, why the score was, what it was. Again, they got the zebras there to ensure the perfect outcomes. And, there's even more to the score. Kayla, who does a great job decoding herself, she was tracking all this stuff with 51 and Native American rituals, and then you got 51 points scored in the Super Bowl. So, anyhow. And then again, in that Super Bowl, it was on 2/2/2020. Andy Reid got his 222nd career win. 222. And what's weird about that is if you write out February 2nd as words, the date of the Super Bowl, it's also 222. And again, it was exactly 222 weeks after the Kansas City Royals defeated the New York Mets in the 111th World Series, which was, my first prediction from the start of a sports season. I said in that spring training why the New York Mets would be in the 111th World Series. Everyone who replied to that video, that was in the early days of this, there wasn't one positive comment for that prediction video. Nothing but people making fun of how stupid this was. The Mets had zero chance. Dumbest thing they'd ever seen. Go back to the 111th World Series and look at how it ended. It ended on 11/1, November 1st. Matt Harvey was going for the complete game with the Mets. On his 111th pitch, which was his last pitch of the game, he gave up the hit that drove in the first run for the Royals, which opened up the floodgates, to Eric Hosmer. And you can go back and watch the replay. I'm sure you can look it up online. You'll see that Eric Hosmer comes to the plate with a 111 batting average for the World Series. And then on Matt Harvey's 111th pitch, he drives in the first run of the game. And then moments later, the game's over because then the Royals' bats came loose and the game was over. And then New York had lost the 111th World Series on 11/1. And by losing to the Kansas City Royals, They got that 212 connection, which is a New York area code, and you might recall that the American League Championship Series, to see who was going to face the Mets, was between the Royals and the Toronto Blue Jays that year, who also had the 212 connection. If I spell it right. That's what can make things tricky. Because if you see that the riddle's all about New York, and you got two teams going against each other that both have the New York connection, it can be like, that can't happen. And I'll tell you what, Dan Barrett that year, what he caught was how Prince Charles was synced up with the Kansas City Royals. Dan Barrett's always been real good with the royal family and stuff. I think Dan Barrett did see in advance that it made sense for the Royals to face the Mets. So Dan Barrett just came out of nowhere. He learned from me the code, but then he had a good mind to connect dots and just knows a lot about all sorts of things. Popular culture, history, sports. Dan Barrett's a big Lakers fan. If you knew Dan Barrett back in the old days, his symbol was the Los Angeles Lakers. But anyway, man, it's just, the thing is, you can make this fun too. It's fun to just laugh at the script and see how it's all done. And of course, it's nice to be right about your predictions. Of course, you'll be wrong here and there, but a lot more often than not, by having this knowledge, you're going to be well ahead of the curve. Just like earlier this year, there was the big fight between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, and again, it was a racial thing. It was those numbers that they like to code on Black history, and the word slavery is 30 and 42, the N-word is 30 and 42, Tuskegee's 30 and 42, and it wasn't hard to see what they were going to do with the Wilder and Fury fight. Tyson Fury was coming in with a chance at his 30th career win, and Deontay equals 30 as well. So Fury was going for his 30th win over Deontay, and Wilder was coming in already with 42 wins, and Tyson equals 42. And again, it was synced up with the 42-1 fight with Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson, which was on the 42nd day of the year back in the day. But, Deontay Wilder stayed on 42 wins, and Tyson Fury got his 30th win. And again, when you understand the numbers, the symbolism, and that was right after the Super Bowl too, right, where Patrick Mahomes had finished the game with his 42nd pass in Black History Month. The fight was also in February, Black History Month, which has the 42 on it. Again, it's about having this knowledge. It's about understanding the meaning of these numbers. It's about understanding what numbers sync up with what fighters, what teams, how they're used ritualistically again and again. And then it's about taking advantage of the script. And I think I have a million more examples I could go through, just things that we've covered over the years. And we'll go back and look a little bit more at this UFC 249 fight. But what I want to do right now is just transition into talking about things that are very promising if from a gambler's point of view, and ways that you can go wrong. So let's start with something about very promising. So I'm just going to type in San Antonio, just because San Antonio's got a sports team, right? Or instead of San Antonio, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to type in Spurs. San Antonio Spurs. So something that is so golden is if a team is coming into a game and say they're going to play the Spurs, right? And let's just say it could be any team. They're coming in and they're playing the Spurs, and their record coming into the game is 32-21. If their record is 32-21, you can feel confident that the outcome of this game is going to be the team picking up their 33rd win and leaving with 21 losses, right? Because they're coming in with 32 wins and they're already on the 21 losses. At the same time, if they came in 33-20, well, you can feel very confident that team's going to pick up the 21st loss. Or if they were coming in 41-21, you could feel confident about them becoming 42-21. The point I'm making is when there's a record that lines up with the wins and losses that is a value, or if the wins and losses can line up with two Gematria values from a team, that is a very good sign. And it could also be like this. Say the team is coming in with 41 wins and they're on 32 losses. They have 41 wins and 32 losses, right? Well, you realize San Antonio's 41 and you realize Spurs is 33. That's also an encouraging sign. For some reason, it seems to be a little bit better when both values sync up with either the city name or the team name, when it's all in one cipher, but it can be both ways. If you can get the corresponding with the win and loss record with the opponent, that is very, very high probability that that's going to be correct. Now, I do know something that people got burned on huge this year with the NBA, and it was shortly after the death of Kobe. Remember, Kobe Bryant's 41, dead at 41. Hold on, just in case somehow you haven't heard me talk about Kobe Bryant and you're new here. Again, look at all the values of Kobe Bryant. A month before Kobe's death, you can look this up, he was in the news for helping direct traffic after a car accident in Los Angeles. That story was on Kobe Bryant's 113th day of his age. And remember, Michael Jordan's 113, Kobe Bryant's 113. The National Basketball Association's 113. Kobe played his last game against the Utah Jazz, the only 113 team. His retirement poem, Dear Basketball, 113. So, huge number with his career. He made his NBA debut on November 3rd, 113. He was drafted round 1, 13th pick overall, 113. Huge. So, a month before his death, he's associated with an accident, a traffic accident in Los Angeles. He ends up dying at age 41. LA's 41, Kobe Bryant's 41. 41's the 13th prime. LA's also 13. He was the 13th pick. Kobe Bryant died on his 157th day of his age. And Kobe Bryant died one day after King James passed him in points scored in Philadelphia, in his hometown, where the real King James died at age 58. And the four-letter name of God is the Tetragrammaton. Remember, this code has everything to do with God. That's what it's supposed to be about. But the four-letter name of God. Kobe fell to fourth in scoring and then dies the day after King James passes him in Philly. Now, look at Kobe's full name, Kobe Bean Bryant. Before LeBron even passed Kobe, I put out a video before the game was played, and I said Kobe's getting passed today because it has everything to do with 54. Today's January 25th, 25/1, like 251, the 54th prime. And sure enough, LeBron passes Kobe, scoring the 54th points of the game. Now, look at all these values of Kobe Bean Bryant. Kobe Bryant, he did the predictive programming with Kanye West for the Nike The Black Mamba movie, which ends with an exploding helicopter. Kobe's helicopter crashed by Kanye West and Kim Kardashian's house. A span of 135 days from Kanye West's June 8th birthday. Kobe Bean Bryant, 135. The 243 and 81, Kobe died while the United States of America is 243 years old, but he also died 243 days after Jerry West's 81st birthday. And again, they are debating on making Kobe Bean Bryant the logo of the NBA. That is something they could do as soon as this season. Maybe they'll do it next year. I won't be surprised if they do that, because that was a story that came up to change the league's logo to Kobe Bryant. And just remember, he died 243 days after Jerry West's 81st birthday. Of course, Kobe's record high in points was 81 points in his 666th career game. There's something called Sumerian Gematria. If you use that, helicopter equals 666. But if you use Sumerian Gematria, which is multiplying the alphabetic order times 6, Kobe Bryant 678, Michael Jordan 678, Utah Jazz is 678, Dear Basketball 678. You're just multiplying the alphabetic order times 6. 113 times 6 is 678. Kobe Bryant played his last career game exactly 678 weeks after Michael Jordan played his last game. And Michael Jordan played his last game in Philadelphia, where Kobe's from. And remember, the Warriors are originally from Philly. The day that Kobe played his last career game, his game was on ESPN 1. The Warriors were playing, I believe they were playing the Chicago Bulls on ESPN 2. It was their last game of the season as well. Kobe's father was drafted by the Golden State Warriors. And that day, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson set an NBA record, the most three-pointers made in a season by two teammates, and it was 678. Ritual, scripted, technology to ensure outcomes. It's all there. And you pay attention, you'll see there's some There's some physics in sports with field goals, with baskets made that don't add up. So, again, you learn the code, your eyes will really open up to some amazing rituals that take place. And they take place often. And, again, you have this knowledge, you will see them. Okay. So things that can go wrong. You know, sometimes you feel like you have the $1 million pick, the one that can't miss. Like a lot of people thought for sure the Lakers were going to become 41-13. And, you know, it's not a bad thought. For all the people who are still so sore. And again, I just got to clear myself. I didn't put out the pick that LA was going to become 41-13. I wasn't decoding sports at that time, but I had a lot of people write me about it just because they know I do this and they learn this from me. And just there are people who know how consistent these numbers are with LA, and they said, Zach, man, I went big tonight from so many people I just heard it. I got phone calls that day. Just so many people were so discouraged by this game. This is why I remember it, even though I wasn't even decoding sports. But some people are like, oh my God, Zach, how didn't it happen? How didn't they become 41-13? LA's 41-13. Kobe just died. And, you know, again, that's why, you know, sometimes numbers are so consistent for cities, like those numbers are consistent for LA. And remember, 41's the 13th prime number too. So, again, the thing is, you guys, this is why you just want to be steady. You don't want to just think like you have the $1 million riddle and bet your whole farm on it and then be disappointed. What you want to do with this knowledge is you want to be smart. You want to be selective. You don't want to bet a lot of money to make big bets. You want to do smart bets. For example, yesterday in UFC, Big Al called me up. I gave him a few fights that I thought looked smart. The guy going for his 59th win on 5-9. First of all, it was the biggest payout of the day, and it was one of those smack-you-in-the-face riddles that usually come through. So it just made sense to go with that. I told him I liked the Carla Esparza fight because she could get her 17th win and keep her opponent on 17 wins. And the date was 5-9, like 59 the 17th prime. You got to learn to look at the dates like that. May 9th, 5-9. You got to look at that like 59, 17th prime. So I said that made a lot of sense. So that made sense. And then, of course, we were talking about the 2-2-2 thing with the top fight, which was an underdog as well. Only 2 underdogs won, and they were both fights that we saw. And then Big Al's really good at this. He really liked Cowboy yesterday, but I got him to tamper off Cowboy because I said, look at it this way. Cowboy, the guy whose name is Donald Cerrone, he goes by the nickname Cowboy. And they do riddles with these fighters' nicknames too. But I said, hold on, Al. I said, you just told me Jacksonville, Florida, where the fight was, has the 83 connection. Jacksonville, Florida's 83. Cowboys 83. And 83 is the 23rd prime. And the guy he was fighting against, I didn't really do it much of a deep UFC code, but the guy he was fighting yesterday, that guy gets really good riddles, and he's one of the hotter fighters right now in UFC. But I just said, look, his opponent can get his 23rd win, and that makes so much sense to get his 23rd win over Cowboy. So anyway, Al didn't kill it yesterday in UFC, but he made over $650 yesterday. And he didn't bet a lot. He never bets a lot. He just does these parlay bets. So he had a parlay with those 4 fighters yesterday. Good payout. You know? You have 2 underdogs on there. So for people who don't gamble, so let's say you have a fighter that if... I'm just going to explain this to you. You have a fighter that you bet $100 on, right? And you don't even have to bet $100. But if you bet just on a straight bet, you bet $100 and he pays out $250. That's what the fight was with the guy going for his 59th win yesterday on 5-9 who won. So if you would have just made a straight bet of $100 on that, it would have paid you $250. If you take a fight like that and you parlay it with a fight like Carla, who got her 17th win and kept her opponent on 17 wins, she was a favorite. You had to bet $150 on her to win $100. But if you take a fight with big odds and put a fight like that, if both of those fights come through, you know, a $10 bet will pay, you know, 40 some dollars, close to 50, right? So if you make a $10 bet and you take the guy going for his 59th win, who's a big payout, you take Carla Esparza, who's a slight favorite, you take Andy Pettis, who was also like around that same neighborhood, like 150 paid 100, and then you take the underdog for the top fight, who you pay 100, who pays out 180. If you put all of those on a parlay card and you take all 4 of those fights and you bet $10, and you win, it pays over $100. So, and again, to me, that's the way to have fun with this, to not bet a lot, to not be so stressed out. I mean, if you lose $10, it's not the end of the world. But you know what? You've done your research. You see how these combinations work. You know that all 4 of those fights have a good, strong narrative. You're only putting $10 up. And if your $10 hits, well, now you just won, $120, $150, depending on what site you're on. That's not bad. $150 for me, that feeds me and Sweet Lady. The way we mostly make all of our meals and eat at home, I mean, $150 is probably close to 3 weeks worth of groceries. So a $10 bet paying for the food for 3 weeks, I mean, there's something useful to that. And I know a lot of you guys, you like to bet $1,000 at a time. I mean, do what you want, but I mean, of course, if you bet $1,000 on that, you're getting a huge payout. And I mean, that's the other thing too, is when you're doing a live stream and you're putting out your picks for the day, and there's like 1,000 people that are using those picks, and some of those picks are in hockey where there's not even 1,000 bets in the whole nation on a game, I think in some cases, like, we're actually swinging outcomes because there's too much money riding on an outcome, and they're like, never mind, we're not paying out to these people. So again, that's why it's best that you learn this knowledge. You learn it. And then you use your own mind and you make your own picks rather than one person telling 1,000 people to go out and do this. Because in some things, like 1,000 people betting on the Super Bowl is not going to do anything because millions of people are betting on that game. It's okay if 1,000 people are taking your advice. But if there's a really good hockey riddle for the night and 1,000 people are betting on that game, going from the same thing, getting this good payout, and the rest of the nation, there's only like 800 other people out there betting on the game, Vegas is going to see that. And they're going to be like, no, we're not paying these people 3-1 on this game tonight. No, sorry, we're not going with that outcome. That might have been the outcome, but we're not doing that outcome anymore. And again, so that's why it's so important to learn this knowledge and use it, because it absolutely does pay dividends. And there's a lot of people in this community who've been winning for a lot of years. And there's a lot of generous people, and there's been a lot of good tippers, and there's been a lot of good stories. And again, even if you're not a gambler, you can take this knowledge and help wake your friends up and family who are so emotionally invested in these sports games and these outcomes, and, help free themselves. Because that's actually the favorite thing that I get out of this, is not hearing about how much people won, but when somebody writes me an email or calls me up and says, Zach, I used to spend all Sunday on the couch, and my wife and my daughters, they wanted me to take them somewhere, and I was ignoring them, and I now realize that all those years I should have been taking them out to what they want to do and spending more time with them, and now I don't even care about the game, and now I'm spending more time with my family, and my wife and I are getting along better. To me, that's really where it's at, because this stuff is truly contrived crap. It is stealing people's time and energy, and it's best to just free yourself from it, and maybe on the side, maybe do a $10 bet here and there, because today's one of those days where there's the magical alignment. You're like, wow, this $10 bet has a chance to pay out $200 tonight. And, there's people, like I said, Big Al, he's done a number of bets. And the reason I bring up Big Al so much is because he's somebody who's been with me for a long time, someone who's called to me on the phone. He's someone that I know probably more than anyone else in this community. Also, he was one of the only people to fly out to Seattle and protest with me. But, Big Al is someone who's been winning with this knowledge for a long time. And sure, there are some losses along the way, but, Big Al, when he wins this much, he only loses this much. He's staying way up. So, and so are a lot of people. And, this is knowledge, and this is a tool. And you can give the best built tool in the world to a fool, and he'll make a mess of that tool. So you have to be wise, you have to be smart, you have to be selective. And again, what I will encourage people who want to go out and start using this knowledge is don't overcomplicate things. Keep things surface level. For example, if you're scrolling through the games and you're running the Gematria, let's just say there's 9 basketball games happening today, and you go through each game and you're looking for that game where the team can pick up the win or the loss that matches the Gematria. Somebody's playing Los Angeles, right? And you're like, okay, that team can get their 37th winner or their 37th loss. You're like, okay, that looks good to me. Now, I want to tell you something. Like I said earlier, if the date numerology, And again, for people who are new here, go back and watch lessons 1 and lessons 2. Lessons 2 is date numerology. If the Gematria is there and the date numerology is there, it is golden. Like if somebody was going for their 37th win against Los Angeles on a 37 date numerology, or just say the date was March 7th, that could also work. March 7th. That's like 3-7. That has a really, really, really high probability of coming through. If every day all you did was just look for the games where the team that can pick up the win or the loss that corresponds with the gematria of the team, and you just were selective and just looked for those games, you would probably hit at a ratio of at least 75% of your games. And the ones that don't come through, you'll be like, well, why didn't that one come through? You know, for example, a team's facing LA. And remember, with cities that are like that, Los Angeles, LA, you want to be aware of the acronym too. That can matter. But like, say a team, you're like, okay, this team can get their 13th loss tonight. LA in 13 plays strong, which it does. And then they don't. They win, so you're disappointed. You're like, damn, why did they not win tonight? Or why did they not lose to LA? Or whatever the outcome was supposed to be. But then you look and you're like, oh, look at who they play next. Their next game is against Dallas. Dallas is another big 13 city. So that's why sometimes it is also good to look a game ahead, right? But that's where things can get tricky, because then it can be like, are they going to get their 13th loss tonight against LA? Or are they going to get their 13th loss in the next game against Dallas? And again, it's a guessing game at that point. That's what can make things tricky. That's what can cause you to miss on things that look really good. But the good news is that let's say you lost, you were like, man, I really thought that team was going to get their 13th loss tonight against LA, and then you realize, you're like, but the next game's Dallas? Well, be confident that they're going to get that 13th loss in the next game against Dallas, and, 8 to 9 times out of 10, they are going to pick it up that way. If it misses 2 times in a row, that can be really frustrating. It does happen sometimes. And then you realize, you're like, okay, they were setting it up for this further thing down the road, because sometimes it is that way. But again, if you're just selective and you look for just on the surface, again, a lot of times it's just the most surface level stuff. Portland's another 37 city. Portland in 37 is just, last year I made that video about Damian Lillard's 37-foot game winner, and I forget what it was. I think they gave like Oklahoma City their 37th loss against the Blazers in playoff history, and I think it was on a 37 date number. I'd have to go back. But the game was even synced up with Damian Lillard's birthday. I mean, in that live stream, that was one of our best calls in sports of the whole year, because the Blazers were a 1.5 point favorite. A 1.5 point favorite to beat Oklahoma City, and the money was huge on Portland. And what I told people is, I said, I'm pretty sure Portland's going to win this game. It's going to be a huge 37 ritual, but there's so much money on Oklahoma City that I won't be surprised if the Blazers win by 1 point. So if you're taking Portland, take them on the money line, or take Oklahoma City to cover. And I said, here's my other prediction for this game. Damian Lillard hits the game winner tonight, because the way that game was structured, it was like, I'd have to go back and look. It was like something like 82 days from Lillard's birthday or something like that. But then there was also alignment. It was like an alignment with his last birthday and his next birthday. So we're saying, like, look at this game. This only happens once a year for Damian Lillard. Once a year do you get alignment like this. Plus, Damian Lillard's known for hitting game winners and being a clutch shooter. But I was like, this is just too perfect. So I said, I'm envisioning Damian Lillard game winner tonight. Big 37 riddle. Blazers win, but they probably don't cover that 1.5 point spread. And that's exactly what it was. Blazers win by a point. Or if they were 2.5, maybe they won by 2 points. Whatever it was, they did not cover the spread. Damian Lillard hit the game winner. And not only that, but he hit it on a 37-foot shot. I was just like, you see, guys? You see, man, it's a joke. So, and go back and watch that highlight. What's funny is the NBA's using that highlight for this year, but all they're showing of that highlight is when Lillard releases. They're not showing the ball travel through the air, because you can see the ball noticeably move in like a curve, like a baseball pitch, through the air. So, I mean, that shot was all technology. And, again, just perfect script. So, anyway, the way to use this knowledge, one more time before I open it up for calls and questions. Go back and watch lessons 1 and 2. Understand how the ciphers work. Stick to these 4 base ciphers. Understand how date numerology works. Practice with the code. If you're new, don't bet the farm. Start small. Put together parlays using the knowledge. And go with your gut and go with your instincts. And if you know about sports and, if you got a good feel for sports, people who are already like well-versed in gambling and reading lines and following the theme of things, they're the ones that really excel with this knowledge. Rod and Victor, who both do great work, who I advised, Rod had literally been just doing this for his living, but now while sports has been out, he's gone and got a job working in the Atlanta area. But Rod is truly a career gambler, and he won before he came along, but once he got this knowledge, he'll tell you that this took him to a whole new level. He never won like this. And Rod called in all the time when we did daily sports and just always so grateful, telling how grateful he is. I mean, everybody knew how grateful Rod was. And that's why I advise Rod as someone to learn from. He is a gambler. He has good instincts. He knows how this code works. He knows how to keep it surface level, because you really want to do. When you start overanalyzing, that's when you get yourself into trouble. And the more I did this, the more it made me want to overanalyze and learn more. And I realized, when you start overanalyzing, you beat yourself. You just want to go back to, just the stuff that's right on the surface. Team can pick up their 53rd win versus the Trailblazers. That's the surface level stuff. Also, know your prime number relationships. You see how Trailblazers is 181? That's the 42nd prime number. Prime numbers matter. Teams going for their 42nd win against the Trailblazers, that can matter, So, again, by clicking on the numbers, it will tell you if the number's prime or not. And sometimes Derek's website gets overloaded, and when this screen comes up, it gives you an error message. If you're ever having that problem, just go to the website numberempire.com, because it's pulling all the information from this site anyway. Just type in the number you're looking for, and then click look up, and it'll tell you 181. Is it prime? Yes, it's the 42nd prime. Prime numbers are most important. Triangular numbers can be important. Fibonacci numbers can be important. And all that's discussed in lesson 2. So you can go back and watch that lesson. You have access to it. And I'll take calls at this point. So let me switch the slide here so you can see. Whoops, that's not the right one. That's the right one. So it's that 509 number if you want to call in. I'll be taking your questions, comments, clarifications. But again, sports, understanding gematria, understanding date numerology, looking at the stats. Actually, hold on. Before anyone calls in, one more thing. Good website that you need to know about for looking up stats. There's a reference site for all the major sports. So like if you type in NBA reference, it'll pull up this site, basketballreference.com. This site, you can search for teams' win-loss records. Do it for the same things. NFL reference, MLB reference. There's a site like this for all the major sports. And what do you know? Rod's the first guy to call in tonight. What's up, Ron?
Hey, what's going on, Zach, man? Just listening to you. You did a great job tonight. How you broke it down. You gave them the ins and outs, and just you gave it to them. That was raw. You gave it to them straight up. I like that, man. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad that you appreciated the lesson. I doubt you learned anything new tonight.
I didn't really learn. I see that you got me back on surface level, because I did mention that fighter in my notes to get the 59th win on 5-9, but it was just so surface level. And I don't know nothing about UFC, so by the odds being plus 200, I backed off. But it still was in my notes. You see what I'm saying? It was right there. You couldn't help but to see that.
Right. Yep. And again, it's just a reminder, man. Those surface level riddles, they're usually the one. But that's exactly that'll happen, man. Because you'll look and you'll be like, but man, are they really going to pay out on that? They did.
Right. And then what I did learn tonight, what you said about the Gematriot. So that's how I won. If you look at my notes on the fight, my best pick of the card was Bryce Mitchell, because Bryce Mitchell had the Gematria of Battleman weight. If you put Battle weight in Bryce Mitchell, they got all 4 ciphers matched up.
Huh.
And that took me home.
Interesting, yeah. So what I know about the fights, because Al's always calling and gloating, because Al's been killing UFC, man. He's making a lot of really big payouts on UFC. He's just running the fighters' names and their records, and he's just looking like, oh, this fighter's name equals 17, and they can get their 17th win? Okay, I'm all over that one. And he's really eyeballing and looking for those, and he's had some real nice paydays. So.
Right, yeah. I was all over that caller, because caller equals 17. I was all over caller. What I asked you about, what I wanted to see, you went over there too about Patrick. So Patrick equals 33, and it was 333 days left in the year, and he did it on the 33rd day of the year.
And he became the 33rd NFL quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. And for people who are saying how's that possible, look it up. It's a fact. Count up every single NFL quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. It's because some quarterbacks have won several Super Bowls. So Patrick Mahomes, Patrick 33, became the 33rd quarterback to win a Super Bowl. And you're right, his full name does equal 333. And this year, because it was a leap year, it was the day leaving 33 days left in the year. So yeah, that's a good reminder.
Right, that's what I was going to call in and ask you about, but you covered that because the guy, I'm decoding already for the Wednesday fight, and it's a guy whose birthday is 333 days after his birthday, and it's 33 days into his birthday.
Huh.
So, I think that, so I was wondering, because I knew he had a 333 and a 33 connection for the Super Bowl, but I didn't know how it was, but it was through Patrick Mahomes' name. So now I can, decipher what I want to do with that in my notes. But yeah, man, like I said, I just wanted to call you and, man, appreciate that. Did learn a little something, like I said, because I knew when I seen Bryce Mitchell and I seen that, like heavyweight, bantamweight, lightweight, when that Gematriot, I'm gonna tell you, man, when I seen that all four numbers equaled each other, that my hair started jumping out my skin. I knew it was it right there. Just my intuition grabbed it right there. So it's like, man, and then I learned, like you said, you call it Gematriot. When all of them, when it is something. When you got two things and all four ciphers match, you need to be on that. So that's something that I will take away from tonight. Appreciate you, man. I'll let you get the other calls, man.
All right, appreciate it, Rock. Keep up the good work.
Yes, sir.
All right, take care. Caller?
Hey, Zach.
Hey, what's up, man?
How are you?
Doing well.
New Patreon. I'm sure you have this in a lesson somewhere, but the English ordinal, forward action, reverse, etc. How do you know which one is significant to whatever the issue is, or the name, or
again? Okay, yeah, I got you. So, okay. Again, let's just say that all things are equal, and you're conflicted because maybe if you could only take away one of these ciphers, the most important cipher is the dark blue one, which says full reduction on the screen, the alphabetic order with the rules numerology. That's the most important, but all four of these ciphers matter. They all matter. But I would always, if I had to choose one, I would roll with that blue one. That is the most important one. But you want to use all four ciphers. And you want to look at all four of these ciphers as four parts of one system. So they're all important. Are you there? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, sorry, I'm on an internet connection. It's a little spotty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, my connection's a little spotty. I'm trying to move. And also, I was wondering about, since this is new to me, Pete Rose during, what was that, the 80s or 90s and his gambling thing. Do you have any take on what that was all about?
So to me, that it's kind of like the Tim Donaghy story for the NBA ref that was supposedly gambling. Do you know that story too?
No, I hadn't heard.
Well, it's a similar story. An NBA ref was kicked out of the NBA because supposedly he was betting on games that he was officiating. But the reason I think they put out stories like that is to make it seem like pro sports are legitimate. To like make an example and say, oh, you couldn't, oh, look at that. He was going against, the integrity of the game by doing that, when there's really no integrity to these games. They are scripted theater. And just to come back to your other question about the reverse, again, we called this year's Super Bowl 54 the Joe Montana Bowl. Joe Montana equals 54. In his career, he played for the Chiefs and the 49ers. And the media really gave it away that the Chiefs were going to win. One thing to think about is Joe Montana wore 16 with the 49ers, and he wore 19 with the Chiefs. This was the 2019 season, and the Chiefs won. But the way the media gave it away is they made a joke story that was supposed to be a joke. It was that Joe Montana guarantees his team will win the Super Bowl. And, of course, he played for both teams, so it was supposed to be like a joke. Well, like, obviously his team's going to win. But you can go back and look. Every single outlet that ran that story, every single one, the picture that they showed of Joe Montana was him either in a Chiefs uniform or holding the Chiefs flag or wearing a scarf at a game with the Chiefs on it. Every single one had Chiefs in the Joe Montana shot. And again, I was telling people, he wore 19. It's the 2019 season. 19 with the Chiefs. So the other thing about Joe Montana is the Super Bowl was 131 days from his birthday. Super Bowl equals 131 with the alphabetic order. And Joe Montana equals 54 in the reverse reduction. So those are different ciphers, but they're in that base 4 system. So that's what I mean. You gotta look at all the ciphers and see how the riddles and numbers come together. But look at them as 4 parts of one system.
Oh, so usually it's not just one. If it's not the full reduction, then the other ones could, or some.
They're all important. They are all important. Yes. They're all important.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate
And like I was saying earlier, it's like when you write out 49ers as a word, it equals 64 and 62 in these ciphers. The Chiefs have now scored 64 points in Super Bowls and had 62 scored against them. You would only pick that up by looking at both of these ciphers. So that's why you need all the ciphers to see the total riddles.
Yeah, I'll just have to keep looking at your work and take it in because I'm a little slow with all these numbers. So
okay, yeah, you'll get it.
Myself, so
yeah, practice makes perfect. Yeah, all right, man.
Right.
All right. Take care. See you. So again, like the only way you would ever see the riddle of what the Chiefs have done now, having 64 points scored in the Super Bowl and 62 against them, is by looking at these ciphers forwards and backwards. So that's why you need all ciphers. Yeah, and I would encourage you to just stick with those 4 base ciphers. So, let me see. I'm peeking into the chat right here just to see if there's questions in the chat in case there's somebody who can't call in. Okay, we just got a call from Phoenix. For the question, the lottery question, I'll answer in a second. Caller, what's going on?
Hey, what's up? Is that a good one?
Hey, man.
Hey, yeah, I've been posting on the Patreon lately because I just seen all the trolls on there, man. That is just ridiculous.
It's gotten better because I'm not decoding sports. I mean, there was even more of them before, but yeah, it's like it's their job to just live there and just talk at mess all day, and it's just like
literally, man.
Yeah, it's pathetic. But
I went to do some research for the fights just to see if I could shut them up. Put something out a couple days early. I put it in the community tab if you want to check it out.
Sure. They won't shut up. There's nothing that will shut them up. You could go 12 for 12, they'd be talking trash.
All just like one person switching accounts and shit or something.
It could be, but it could even be like AI. Sometimes I wonder if they're like AI bot accounts. So
One doubt.
Because they post at all hours of the day. I mean, when the sports season's busy, I mean, they're posting around the clock. When sports season's going, they make like 300 posts a day. The community, it's ridiculous.
For real.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Yeah, man. But it's just funny how they keep saying how you made this pick and that pick, but they don't, supply any video to show that you say it. They claim that you said something. And another thing is they're always saying that your picks are wrong, but as one of your students, I've gotten picks right, and that's an extension of you. I would like to say, I didn't know this knowledge until you presented it to me. So.
Yeah, well, it's just a joke. It's like, I mean, I don't worry about what they say.
It's a fucking joke, dude.
Yeah, they're pathetic people,
they're just trying so hard.
Yeah, there's real people in this community who make money and they continue to earn and they support.
Yeah,
and people like Jeremy White, who's in the chat right now. Jeremy White drove hours and hours to compound payment with us and won money again and again, and won it again this year at the Super Bowl.
On Saturday, I posted my screenshot of my bet. I had Gaethje because his name was 95 in the reverse numerology.
Right.
And like you said, 222, and then I see another 222 with the upcoming fight. I put that in my post, but yeah, man, it's just funny how they say we're not decoding shit when it's like right there,
Right, we're calling the news, we're calling the sports, and we've been doing it consistently for 7 years. And these guys are goons. It's like, for example, so a real story from last sports season, there was a 2-week period where we absolutely dominated the NBA and NHL. I mean, we just destroyed it. And by the way, for hockey fans, really pay attention to the points. Like if a team's playing a city that equals 45 and they can pick up their 45th points, that's usually where it's at. But anyway, we dominated the NBA and NHL for like 2 straight weeks. I mean, just like domination. Well over an 80% hit ratio. And we dominated dominated college football over those weekends too. Just absolutely murdered college football. Like a whole ton right to maybe a couple wrong. And we had a NFL weekend slightly below 500. And then I had like my worst NFL weekend ever. Well, all they were spamming about just everywhere is how bad those NFL weeks were and how worthless this information is. It's like, okay, so seriously, out of hundreds of picks that we've just dominated in this 2-week period of time, you guys are just focused on the NFL and just spamming everywhere about how worthless this is because of that one really bad NFL weekend, which it was really embarrassingly bad. I don't know what went wrong that weekend, but that's who these people are.
On the Patreon during that time, so it's like, I've seen throughout the years since 2018, you've gotten some wrong, like you just admitted, but, man, I'd say you're a good 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10 on them, conservatively, but...
Well, the thing is, so in recent years, I've gotten worse, and that sometimes I wonder if it's like, has the reverse screwed me up by paying attention to these reverse ciphers? But I also think part of the reason I've gotten worse in recent years is because I'm now doing this for profit. There's now people subscribing and using the picks, and we have an active troll force that is monitoring us 24/7, 365.
I'll just take what you say and build on it too. People just look at your work and just, just blindly go off what you say. You as a teacher, we should build on what you say, not just take what you say and run with it. That should apply to anyone that's telling you anything, but
sure.
People don't even know how to do that.
Sure, but I'm just saying there is something curious about how in recent years my percentage of being right has gone down in recent years, but we're still winning consistently, but it's not as good as it was 2 years ago. And that's also part of the reason that I want to pass on the torch to some other people and just get the knowledge in people's hands so they can use it. Because again, when 1,000 people are going out and using your information and you're actively being watched by mainstream media and a pack of trolls, it is possible that they are flipping some of the outcomes to make you look bad. Again, USA Today wrote an article about me about Super Bowl 50. That means we've been in the eyes of the thing for going on 5 years. So...
and you put out riddles sometimes days or even, on Monday for Sunday's game. So, they could see the information, see where the money's on in Vegas, and just, one pass gets intercepted at the end of the game, someone shoots a brick,
Right. So, yeah, anyway, man. But, yeah, the trolls are a joke.
The information, man. Flying it. You're a great teacher. Thanks.
Well, you're welcome. And I would just advise anybody to not fight with the trolls. I mean, that's what they're here, is to waste people's energy and just let them be they truly are. I mean, the phrase worthless loser doesn't do justice to how pathetic these people are that troll here. So,
thanks.
Yeah.
But, check out my community post on the Patreon. I put up 3 fights. I put a $20 parlay. It pays $3.50, so.
All right, man. Good luck with that one.
Yep.
All right. That's the way to do it, though. All right. Take care, man.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, just to explain how pathetic the trolls are, there was a member of this community who reportedly committed suicide September 2019. Very brilliant guy, called in a lot, very energetic, very helpful, was building technology to help us with the cause. We got news that he committed suicide. One of the trolls changed their account name to his name and now trolls with it. I mean, that's just how pathetic the people are here that troll every single day. Caller?
Oh, boy. Hey, Zach, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were doing a live show right now. I was actually listening to yesterday's show.
Well, I got to keep it going then because we're doing the live show right now. You can call me back.
I'm so sorry.
All right, no problem, man.
Take my number. Call me back if you can.
All right, will do. Take care. Caller? Caller?
What's up, Zach?
Hey, what's up?
Not much, man. I just wanted to just add in on the sports decode on what I like to do. I like to personally myself decode college basketball games. I noticed that a lot of the riddles go through the coaches, so you don't have to look around a lot like you do with professional sports.
Right.
That's one thing. I also like to decode those UFC or boxing matches. Same reason again. there's really not that many variables you got to look around. It's just really the boxer or the fighter.
Right.
And,
right.
And I had called in a couple days ago about the Bible code or whatever, and I had advised you look up Revelations 4 and 9, because Revelations equals 49 and 121. I found another Bible scripture. It's Chronicles 121. So verse 1, chapter 21. Basically, that little chapter is about David collecting the census during the plague. And I mean, it's not an actual plague that's going on right now, but I mean, it's year of the census, and we're under a pandemic, which could possibly turn into a plague. So just look up Chronicles 121, and then it's Revelations 4 and 9, and you can see the correlations between those Bible scriptures and what's playing out right now in our reality. And I think that's exactly what they're doing. We just got to find the scriptures in the Bible that like kind of correlate with what's going on, and we just got to use those key numbers to figure out which scripture they're using. So, you know, I think that's all I've been doing though. But that's all I have. Zach, I'll let another caller jump on.
All right, appreciate it. Good find, man. Thank you.
No problem.
Right, take care. All right. Let me I'll try and read if there's any questions in the chat. Let's see. Okay, looks like a conversation in the chat's about all sorts of things. There are a lot of calls every week, Jeremy, no doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. All right, here we got another call here. Caller?
Yeah, how are you, Zach?
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, it's your friend from Montreal. I'm going to send you an email with 3 picks to show the new viewers. Let me see, 3 tickets that you could make. You see, not a lot of money involved, big gains behind it because you understand the code. So.
Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, you're the professional fighter that turned Gematria student.
Exactly.
Yeah, man.
Exactly. I'm your quartermaster, Jeremy. I'm good. So I'm still building the Google extension on the side. So I think in 2 months I should be good. And did you receive the email?
Did you send it to Gematria Effect News?
Yes. It's the title is Sports Picks Quartermaster in caps.
Okay, I'm going there right now. Let's see. All right, my computer's running really slow. I'm loading it up.
No problem. So, like for anyone listening, it starts off slow, Gematria, but when the numbers actually make sense, you find the patterns, because that's the most important thing, is to recognize the patterns. Then it's the key. Afterwards, it comes naturally. So the pattern keeps on repeating, and that's it, pretty much.
Okay. All right, so I got this thing up, and the first screenshot I'm just looking at is legend, accurate prediction, inaccurate prediction, purchase made, January.
Exactly.
Okay, hold on. So I'm just.
Let me see.
Hold on, I loaded this in the wrong window.
So
I got to get it so other people can see it.
The green things are the correct answers, and it says how much I wagered and how much the winnings were. So there's a ticket of $5. I want you to show the $5 ticket.
Yeah, I had it up, but it's in the wrong window. I got to put it in this other window so people can see it. Okay, here we go.
So 3-1 Vancouver.
See if there's a way to zoom this in. All right.
I think it's the second picture.
Okay, well, I got the first one up with the Anaheim, and it looks like he wagered 15 and 140 on it. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. And then the second one is one of my greatest so far.
So let's see, $5 wager, and does that say you made 110,000? Am I reading that right?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Incredible. How much of a parlay did you have on this?
One, I predicted the scoring of the game with Gematria.
Ah.
I'm building the algorithm with it.
Crazy. So you made $110,000 on a $5 bet?
No, I made $110 with $5.
Oh, it shows a comma instead of a period. Okay, so you multiplied your money times 22. Okay, I see what it is. Okay,
exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
yeah.
that's with Gematriot. Straight up.
So what was your strategy on this to pick the scoring in the right sequence?
I will need to explain you the algorithm, but it's very complicated. But how can I tell you that? It all revolves around. Pretty much people have to go from the goals against in goals for of that current game and try to actually see if there's a correlation of a score afterwards. So
sure.
If a game, let's say Montreal, because I'm from Montreal, so let's say Montreal's number is 62, and on that game they have 53 goals for.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So that's it. So I try to match, and that's not the only ticket. That's the fastest one I could find. But I have other tickets where I actually predict the score. I 4-3. I predicted a game with Montreal going in overtime versus Capital Washington. You could look that up. They won 5-4 overtime. Same things. I bet $5 for like 110.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So I called it 5-4 in overtime.
Sure. Okay, so what you're doing, you put a lot of research and brain power into this, so you're doing some pretty amazing things. But you bringing up the scores just reminds me of something that I should have told people. So, like, for example, like, let's say that a team is playing in the Staples Center, and they could be winning or losing at halftime. It really wouldn't matter. Let's just say that they had 49 points at halftime, and they're going for their 49th win of the game. Whether they're winning or losing, it's golden that they're going to win that game. They're in the right location. They don't even. It doesn't. The location part doesn't even really need to be there. If you see like a team is going for their 49th win and they have 49 points at halftime, winning or losing, it's a good sign that they're going to win that game. So often the halftime scores in NBA, and this can be in other sports too, but in the NBA it happens a lot. You'll see how that team will have the points at halftime that end up being the win total that they have by the game's end. And I know there was just a big riddle with the Lakers I think it was the Lakers-Clippers game near before the league got suspended with one of these 49 riddles at halftime. So that's another thing you can look for. You'll just pick up on so many patterns because it's all pattern-oriented, like you're pointing out. It's pattern recognition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what it is.
Yeah. So
again, thank you, Zach. So I'll let another caller call in and have a good night.
Hey, before you go, I just got to ask. I mean, do you enjoy doing this more than when you were a professional fighter?
But I was top amateur fighter.
A top amateur fighter. Okay. Sure. Okay.
The thing is, now knowing that it's rigged, I've understood early on like who was being pushed and who wasn't.
I see.
So even an amateur, you see who's being pushed.
I see.
And afterwards, when you understand their parents or families, you get to understand the whole game.
Okay, got it.
So it's at every level, basically. It's at every level.
Got it. All right, man. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
All right, take care, man. See you.
Bye.
And while I'm waiting for the next call, Phoenix, call me back. I keep missing your call. I'm sorry. Again, encourage people to go back and watch lessons 1 and 2 because you really want to know your numbers. Like if it was the 157th day of the year, which is the 37th prime, and the team was going for their 37th win or loss, that would be a good sign. Caller, what's up?
Hey, Zach.
Hey.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on.
Yeah, hey, real quick. I don't know if this is off topic, but I just had a question. Have you ever done decoding on scratcher tickets?
Okay. Scratcher tickets, you can't choose your numbers, right?
Well, because I saw that there was a guy that won out of Kentucky, and he won $1 million on a scratcher ticket, right?
Right.
But they don't. It sometimes, because you can be like anonymous, so you don't have to list your name. But what I did was, it shows the ticket like on the media that he won on, and it's a Kentucky Million, so he won $1 million, and the ticket number is number 3, right? And so I'm like, all right, I don't know where to start. But then, so from the ticket's inception, which is May 3rd, 2019, to the day he won, is Tuesday, April 21st, 2020, which is 354 days, which was kind of weird because if you add 3 plus 5 plus 4, it sums to 3, which the ticket number is 3.
Interesting. Okay, so here's what I can say. In the time I've been doing this and just teaching about numbers, I've had a lot of people email me and call me up and say that they're using this knowledge and winning more at the lottery. And they're saying they're just like playing numbers that I talk about all the time because they're realizing those same numbers like 47 and stuff show up in the lottery all the time. And I've never done anything myself, but I've heard people call and say they're winning more at the lottery games by using this knowledge and realizing what numbers are important and like paying attention to date numerology and playing the numbers of the date numerology. So there probably is something to it. Also, a guy who found me years ago when I lived over on the other side of the state, who I knew in person, he liked to play Keno, and he started using like the numbers and the date numerology in the Keno, and he said he was winning more. But here's still the way I look at it. I feel like even if you like figured out a way to like get really good at winning at the lottery at a higher percentage, it probably still wouldn't be as good as taking advantage of rigged sports. So, I mean, if you can choose a game that you can win at, I'd stick to the games that I'm talking about right here over the lottery. But yeah, there probably is something going on with the lottery. I mean, I've never studied it myself, but I've heard from other people that they're winning more by just using like repetitive numbers that show up all the time in news stories. So there is something there, but I can't really give any good information on that. I haven't put in the time.
Yeah, no, I get it, because the Gaethje fight, actually I wanted to thank you because we won some money on the UFC fight, the post that you put out, which is obviously a lot easier to call those matches, the UFC ones, but I was just curious because I'm like, wait a minute, you know, if this is in the media, and then, you know, this guy won $1 million, and then I started looking a little bit into it, and the ticket number is 3, and then I did from, you know, the span of days, which comes to 3, and then the number, like it shows all the scratch-off numbers, and then when you look like 3, it'll have 3 within the scratch-off numbers or the winning numbers. Like I get what you're saying. Like, there's probably a way to do it, but it's probably a lot more difficult than just to call like a basketball game or a, you know, UFC fight or whatever. But yeah, just wanted to know if you had any knowledge on whether you even looked into it or not.
I've just heard through other people that they've had more success being aware of this knowledge, but still, I mean, I don't know enough about their history of winning and losing. I know most people who play the lottery lose, so if you lose 99 times out of 100 and now you're only losing 95 times out of 100, well, you are winning more, but is it really that great? And again, I don't really know, so it would be something for somebody else to research, though. I got to tell you, I don't have the time to put into that right now, but I'm pretty sure there is something to it, but it's still something that needs to be unlocked, so...
Right, that's where I was like, I really didn't know where to go, like, from there. Like, I did the span of days, and then it matched, like, from the day the ticket came out to the day he won, it matched the ticket number that he won on, and I was like, from there, I'm like, I don't really know where to go, you know what I'm saying? But you're right, maybe I should just continue looking into it and see if I can unlock it or whatever.
There you go, yeah.
All right,
man.
All right, well, I appreciate it, Zach, thank you.
All right, you're welcome, man.
All right, have a good one.
See you. Okay. Where did the window for the chat go? I gotta reset this. This computer has not been like restarted for probably 2 months. It needs to be restarted. The computer is about to die today. I can feel it. Caller?
What 2 ciphers to use that if I wanted to choose 2? What would be 2 important ones to use and more effective?
Well, like I said, when I first started, and I almost feel like I was more effective when I first began, just the dark green cipher and the dark blue one, the ones that are the furthest most on the left, the alphabetic order and alphabetic order with the rules numerology. I would start with those two, and if you just wanted to use one, I would use that that dark blue cipher. But again, I really would look at all 4 ciphers, just like how it loads up on the screen, what I refer to as the base ciphers. And I would favor those ones on the left. But again, because if you're not using the reverse, you're going to miss out on things like what I talked about. Because you'll see how often things come up like this, and you'll never see it if you're not using all 4 ciphers. A number of situations will arise where a team comes in and they can get their record will be the win and loss total that corresponds with 2 of the values of the team they're facing. And whenever you see those are very, very promising outcomes. Those rarely go sideways. I mean, those are some of the most consistent outcomes you can find, and you'll only see them if you know the reverse ciphers. And it's also just like if I wasn't using the reverse ciphers, even though they're not as good as the forward ones, I never would have been able to pick up on the Joe Montana Bowl riddles. So,
right.
Because Joe Montana's 50.
How do you determine the date numerology? The long way or the short way?
Oh, so the date numerology, like, okay. Here, let me how can I show? Here, let me switch I'm going to hang up and answer your call offline with the date numerology. So you watch what I'm about to show on the screen, okay? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to do this on the screen for him. And again, I think I even kind of in a way answered this in lesson 2, but let's just do it one more time. So I need to change this so it shows everything on the screen. And then I need to pull up this, and I need to make the font bigger. Let me zoom it in here. Test. Is that getting bigger? How do I zoom this in? Hold on. I need to make it bigger so all of you guys can see it. Okay. Okay, so that should be big enough. So, whoops, not zoom out. Okay, so I'm just going to do today's date as an example. All right, so it's May 10th, 2020. So there's these different paths for getting the date numerology. So one is 5 plus 10 plus 20 plus 20, which equals 55. Okay, that's one of the paths today. Another is the life lesson number path, which is 5 plus 10 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0, which is 19. And that example I talked about earlier today with the Washington Nationals and the Cleveland Indians and picking up the 48th win on the 48 date numerology, that was this numerology path. So what I'm going to tell you is all of these are important, but I'm going to make a point here in a second. So another path is just adding it up digit for digit. The person calling in right now from Georgia, call me back in just a minute. Let me just finish answering this person's. Or you know what, Georgia, just sit here on hold while I finish answering the question, then I'll go to your call. Sit tight. This other path is just adding it up digit for digit. 5 plus 1 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0. And that equals 10. Now you'll notice what all of these numbers have in common is their numerology breakdown. And this is always true. 55 is 5 plus 5 is 10. 10 is 1 plus 0 is 1. The next cipher is 19. 19 is 1 plus 9 is 10. 1 plus 0 is 1. 10 is obviously 1 plus 0 is 1. So it all breaks down to 1. Now, normally that's not very helpful because it's not very often. Well, like let's say a team was undefeated, right? They're coming in. They're off to this great start. That's another thing I can talk about. Let's say a team is 14-0, right? And they're coming in and it's on this date numerology that breaks down to 1. Today might be the day that they're getting that first loss, especially if you see some other riddle that we're talking about on the board. And just something to tell you guys about with the number 14, that's another really good thing to pay attention to in sports. So often a streak in a sports game will end at 14. The word end in the most pure cipher is 14. E is the 5th letter. N is the 14th. The numerology of 14 is 5. D is the 4th letter, so end equals 14. You will be amazed at how many streaks in the world of sports end at 14. The one thing that can be tricky about that is sometimes, like a team will win 14 straight games and then they'll lose. Sometimes they'll lose in that 14th game, but more often than not, they'll win 14 in a row and then they'll lose. Or maybe they'll lose 14 straight games and then they'll win. But streaks of 14, if it's a date with 43 numerology, which is the 14th prime, and you'll be amazed at how often things line up like that too. That happened, I want to say it was the Raptors in Philadelphia, Phillies playoff basketball series. There was a 43 date, 14 streak type of thing. Like Team had 14 straight losses against one of the opponents. I have to go back and look at it, but that was just one that pops into my head. And it's happened many times since, just for whatever reason that example jumps in. But streaks ending at 14, something to look out for. So anyway, these date numerology paths, I would say that the most important typically is actually this one right here, just where you add everything up digit for digit. But always take it to the next step too and pay attention to that value. Just like the UFC fight the other day was on a date numerology that broke down to 9. One of the fights that I liked was a fighter falling to 23-9, getting his 9th loss on the date numerology that broke down to 9. But also, I always love when somebody's record can be a prime number relationship. 23 is the 9th prime number. A way to kill big parlays, like if Dave's out there right now, Dave was doing dollar parlays on college basketball, and I know it might have been him that hit on 2, but there was 2 people who did it in close proximity to each other. They were just doing dollar bets, but doing huge parlays, and they turned a dollar into, I think one guy turned it into well over $100, and another guy turned it into over $200. What they did is in college basketball, there were dates with like 23 numerology, which is the 9th prime, and they just went through and looked at all the games where a team could get their 9th win or their 9th loss, and they just stuck all those games in a big parlay, and they all came through. And you'll be amazed in college basketball season. And the reason I'm saying college basketball is because there's just so many games, so many different college teams playing each day. You'll be amazed at how it happens. And if it's all organic or if it's all rigged, it doesn't matter. It's just amazing how it'll happen. Prime number relationships in college basketball. It's a 43-date numerology, the 14th prime. You're looking for all the games where the team can get the 14th win or the 14th loss. And if you didn't parlay all those games and you just did a straight bet on all of them, you're going to hit on the majority of them. You know, that's the thing that can suck about a parlay. You could hit 11 out of 12. If you don't go 12 for 12, you lose your bet. And that does happen a lot. There's a lot of guys who are like, man, Zach, I was 11 out of 12. I almost made $1 million. But again, that's the danger of the parlay. So, again, that's why if you're doing those big parlays, don't bet a lot on it. But it can be fun to just bet like a couple dollars on a parlay and see if you're like, whoa, shoot, man, my $2 just turned into $200. So, anyway, the date numerology, this one I'm highlighting right here is probably the most important. But really, you kind of want to look at all of them because, you know, and also another thing is, think about the way sports are, because sometimes you'll pick up on this. Sometimes you'll see that, like, okay, baseball, there's 12 games today in the MLB. 2 of them are at 10 a.m., the rest of them are at 5 p.m., right? So you might notice in those first 2 games that you're like, okay, shoot, the 19's on the board in this game. We got 2 pitchers going who could get their 19th win, or we got 2 teams in these early games that could get their 55th win. So you're like, well, which one is it? Because this happens. You're like, okay, what riddle is it? Is it the pitchers getting the 19th win today, or is it the team getting the 55th win? And you might see in those first 2 games that it ended up being the 19 riddle, right? So you're like, okay, I'm playing the 19s in these 10, the other games that are coming tonight. So sometimes you need to think, you need to watch and see what's going on, because again, this is why the more we work with this, the more we look at it, maybe more we'll understand why it is a date numerology path on a certain day. But my advice to you is to be aware of all of them. And in situations like where I'm talking about, if you can watch some earlier games in the day and see which of those numbers play those numbers in the games later that day too, because that's probably the way they're going for the day throughout the league. But I'd say if push comes to shove, it's usually just this cipher where it's digit for digit, but always keep in mind the full numerology value as well, where 55 breaks down to 1, 19 breaks down to 1, 10 breaks down to 1. And whenever you have prime numbers in your date numerology, you got to pay attention to that prime number relationship too. 19's the 8th prime. So if there was a bunch of teams that could pick up their 8th win on this 19 date numerology, watch that. And then the other thing you have to know about dates is the count of the year. So you can always look up like May 10th. If you just type in the date, do a web search, it'll tell you. May 10th is the 130th day of the year. In leap years, though, which we're in 2020, it's the 131st day of the year, which is the 32nd prime. So, like, if NBA was normally going today, I'd be looking for teams that could get their 32nd win or their 32nd loss. And I guarantee you the majority of those games are coming through today. 32nd win or 32nd loss, that would be playing today if games were in session. So you got to know your prime number relationships. You got to know your day count. And it is also good to pay attention to how many days are left in the year. And again, it's about recognizing the pattern. And sometimes you need to do a little thinking and investigative work. You see a baseball series and you're like, wow, okay, this team has a 4-game series, and you realize that the first game, it was all about the day count. You realize the second game, it was all about the day count in the year. What do you think is going to happen in games 3 and 4? It's going to be all about the day count. So, again, you got to recognize the pattern. And that's how it is. Just like the caller a few minutes ago said, it's all about picking up on the pattern that's in use and the pattern recognition. But it's all numbers games. And, the tricky thing is there can be a few different numbers to look at, but it's about recognizing what number's in play for that specific series, for that specific day, and writing it. So, and a lot of times because of the way sports are structured, because there's games that are starting hours before later games, you can use those earlier games to experiment with and observe to get a better read on the later games. So, all right, caller. Sorry I kept you on hold so long, but you're on now. What's up, man?
Hey. What's going on, Zach? This is Ed, man.
Yeah. What's up?
I called in yesterday on a live stream breaking down the Deus Ex decode.
Very good, man, because did you see how that came into play today?
No, I didn't. What happened?
I made a video before I started this live stream and gave you a shout out, man, because the Elon Musk thing today, did you see he's front and center in the CNN news?
No, I did not.
All right, so here, I'll tell you what's so funny about this. So I would have not understood today's story if you didn't call in yesterday and give that to me. Okay. So Elon Musk compared himself to this video game character whose name is J.C. Denton, right?
Exactly, okay.
And J.C. Denton equals 131, like standoff. And tonight's CNN's headline is how Elon Musk escalated a standoff by going against California's government and reopening his plant, and he's done this on what's typically the 131st day of the year, right? So he's taken this stand against the government, right? And again, in that video game Deus Ex, it's about this hero in the time of a plague going up against the Illuminati. Well, today's 48 days from Elon Musk's birthday, and Illuminati equals 48. So it's just like the video game character.
Yeah, and I pretty much watched the whole first game, like the gameplay, and on Free to Fry and Truth. I don't know if you see my email, but I have a post. I just posted it, and I'm just gonna go over just the most important things. But I also have a section on here, which is like the first paragraph on Elon Musk. So if anybody that's watching right now, probably best to go on Free to Fry and Truth. My post is DSX, Predictive Programmer Decode. Just go on there just so you can follow along.
How long ago did you post this at?
This is like maybe 2 minutes ago. It wasn't long at all.
You posted on Free to Find Truth?
In bold, so you can probably follow along too.
I really don't see your post on Free to Find Truth. I'm going back 39 minutes. There's no post from, you said DSX?
No. My name is Ed on there. It's ED. But the title is
I see it.
DXX, Predictive Programming Decode. That's it.
Okay, I see your post. Okay,
so, are you there to read it and everything?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so just in the first paragraph, a couple things that stand out. Elon Musk, like you were saying, he's very connected to DSX, and he said that he played the game and has experience with it. So for starters, you said that you actually put up on screen that the game released on June 22nd, 2000, which has that 222 in it, like Wuhan Coronavirus, which also on full reduction is 78. Order Out of Chaos, Masonic saying, lines up with 222 being a reverse ordinal and 78 being in reverse full reduction too as well. And then also Neuralink, Elon Musk company, equals 57 in reverse full reduction, as well as nanotechnology, which is something I dig deep on in this here, which equals that too as well, and Tesla, and for reduction equals 57.
Right.
So Elon Musk is definitely he's included in this. But on to the next one. I would say on the second paragraph, DXX, like the caller that followed me, he mentioned that the term DXX, which is short for DXX Machinima, is a Latin term for God from a machine, which in Gematria is 75 in reverse for reduction. All right, and then another thing about it is, we're in the Great Awakening right now, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, which sums to 75 in reverse for reduction too as well. And then going on from that, the next bold is the alternate name for DXX, which is DSX, the conspiracy, equals 234 in English Ordinal, as well as Mark of the Beast. Okay, and if you keep just reading that second paragraph, you'll see how all that connects. But the Apple computer is listed at $666. The first one, you know about that, and it's just the whole Mark of the Beast, that whole thing. Yeah, you already know. So on the third paragraph, though, I break down Idios Ignorative, which is the developer. They sum to 101 in the reverse full cipher, which is 11, the master number. I go over that. Also, their name change, which is Idios Montreal, which is their current name, sums to 201, which is like Event 201, big with the coronavirus. And again, is 75 in reverse for reduction too as well. And then the original name for the game by Warren Spector, the designer, was Majestic Revelations, right? And Majestic Revelations sums to 220 in English Ordinal, also 293 in reverse Ordinal, which slots perfectly with coronavirus pandemic in both ciphers. Also, 113 shows up in coronavirus pandemic, as well as artificial intelligence and for reduction. And 113 is 311, just like when the World Health Organization declared the coronavirus pandemic.
Right.
So, on to the next paragraph. I break down the ties with Freemasonry and this whole game and the coronavirus. So, Freemasonry 139, 58, 158, and 59. And the virus that VersaLife unleashes is called the Great Death, which equates to 59 and 58. Also, like ambrosia, which is a synthetic vaccine, that equals 78, which is a very popular number. 33 too as well. But also it has that 138 and 57. Same connection as the 75 and 57 I break down in the earlier paragraphs. But also, Scottish Rite equals 78, reverse full reduction, as well as ambrosia. Same thing. And Masonry and ambrosia equals 33 and full reduction. So we got all these different intertwined numbers, within the game. And then vaccine equals 57. Order out of chaos, their model equals 75 and 78. And as 75, 57 is a reflection. Wuhan Coronavirus, 78, another one. Bob Page, a main character in the game, he equals 33 and reverse for reduction. Also in the Majestic 12, they equal 58 and reverse for reduction. So also big connection on that. I break down VersaLife. VersaLife, they equal 43. Also 56 in reverse for reduction, like coronavirus. And the VersaLife Corporation, which is another name they go by in the game, is 241 in English Ordinal, which is the 53rd prime number. 273 also, which is equated to the reverse Ordinal number of VersaLife Corporation, is another connection there. Also 119 in Versatile Life Solutions. Another name they have is, of course, is 119, similar to like 9/11, another terrorist attack, on the people. But yeah, man. Last thing that I want to go over probably is just the connection between Seattle and New York in the game. So I'll just read this verbatim. It's the second to last paragraph. So continue with the real world connections this game seems to predict. The city of Seattle comes into play in this tale, right? So 82 in English Ordinal, 107 in reduced Ordinal, first order, and 44 in reverse for reduction is what Seattle equals up to. But syncs perfectly with nanites, the very integral part to the nanotechnology in the game and the reason for the initial outbreak, right? And it syncs up perfectly with Seattle. And Seattle is labeled a fortress city, which is 75 in reverse for reduction, where that city is held under. Sorry, give me one sec. But yeah, it's held under.
So just to be clear, though, the city of Seattle is actually in this video game.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Now they're in the more in the latter part. You don't really get to play at like as JC until like the next installation, but it's still like within the Deus Ex franchise. And just as you read the whole thing, I break everything down, but just continuing on, the Fortress City, like I was saying, it's basically a city where they're held under like a heavy police state, and Seattle is divided into two parts, Upper and Lower Seattle. Lower Seattle is 155 in the English Ordinal, also 70.
That's what. Well, what's. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, man. Yeah, it's just funny knowing Seattle. Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I was laughing literally, like when I was typing in, just because I can see like.
That's how it really is. Seattle's the most segregated city probably in the whole nation, and South Seattle's all the poor and minorities. So.
And it links exactly up to it, the same way in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy stuff, man. Like I said, I mean, it sums up with this game, bro. Like, all these numbers are connecting with the current coronavirus. I mean, it's crazy. But let me just finish it off so I can let some other powers on, man. So Lower Seattle is also where the poor and not to vital social order are located. Like how the coronavirus simulation of N21, the poor communities get hit the worst. The inclinator, which is a mode of transportation for both parts of Seattle, in Gematria, is 155 in reverse ordinal. Also 65, like pandemic, a reflection of 56, which is coronavirus in its purest cipher for reduction. Also patient X, a person to study in the game that they mentioned, is 107, also 44, which is a weird connection. Those numbers pop up and sync with a lot of things in this game. Also the Luminous Path, they're a conspiracy theorist group basically, but they uncovered that that basically a shipment of the virus from the Illuminati went to New York, right? And New York, the UNATCO, United Nations Forum Group, 74 in English Ordinal, also 20, and full reduction 20. Number of deaths, we're in 2020. The collapse in this game took place over 20 years. It came out 20 years ago in 2000. We're in 2020 now. More numbers that connect, but their headquarters in the game is in an underground bunker under Liberty Island, New York. Liberty Island has a Gematriot of 201 in reverse ordinal. Also on the 44 reverse full reduction, I found out that RFID chip has that Gematria. And it's just more things that connect. So if y'all want to just read the whole thing, I break it down, and I kind of connect the dots for you, just so you don't have to actually watch the game or anything like that. But yeah, man, that's what I got. I just finished the decode, so
yeah, it's really good work, man. Very thorough. Keep it up. My only critique would be just that one sentence. You didn't make it real clear that Seattle's in the video game. I would have wrote a more clear sentence that Seattle is in the game. But yeah. Very good work, man.
I appreciate it, man. You keep doing the good work, and we appreciate it for sure.
All right. Appreciate it. Yeah, check out the video I put out. I wouldn't have caught the riddle if it wasn't for you yesterday, so good work.
Yeah, I definitely will, man.
All right, take care. All right, see you. All right, looks like he should start his own YouTube channel. Well, that wasn't really sports related, but I had to give him the floor because I realized his catch is very relevant, and he's putting the Gematria school to work. Look at that. What's up, New Jersey?
Hey, Zach.
Yeah.
You want to take a look at the upcoming NFL season for us? And I think they released a schedule, didn't they?
All right, so yeah, I know that they put out the schedule May 7th. So yeah, let's just think about that real quick. Let's just see. Let's take it. Have they put it out for every single team?
I just remember my brother Tyler talking about it. So.
Okay, so May 7th. This year it was a leap year, so it was technically the 128th day of the year it came out. All right. Sometimes the release date of the schedule can be important. Let me see. Let's look up.
Well, since we're talking about using the knowledge, maybe we can get a long-term bet in, and maybe we can think about when the first game in the NBA season is going to happen again, and maybe it'll have significance with LeBron James or somebody like that.
Sure. Here, let's look at this season opener, which will be September 10th, 20, and we're going to have the Chiefs versus the Texans, which is a very interesting matchup because in history there was a Dallas Texans team that folded and became the Kansas City Chiefs. And, of course, the Chiefs and Texans had that crazy playoff game where the Chiefs were way down to the Texans, and then the Texans gave up that huge lead, and the Chiefs came back and won. So we're going to look from that playoff game to this game because sometimes you want to look at the distance. But, all right, here, I'm going to hang up on you, and we'll take a look. We'll take a look at this Texans-Chiefs game in real time. So, all right.
Good work, man.
All right, other people calling in, save your call for a minute. I will take more calls, but I'm just going to look at some of this Texans-Chiefs stuff. So, again, let's just practice with our date numerology because that could be relevant. So we'll do it one more time. I got to zoom it in here so you guys can see it. So I always start my decode with the date numerology, even though sometimes it's not the most important thing. But it's always good to have the numbers from the date. So, September 10th, 2020. So that is a date with 59 numerology. Battle of the Black Quarterbacks on a 59 day. That's interesting. Remember last year they called the Year of the Black Quarterback, and Deshaun Watson had a good season too. That's the Texans quarterback. So we got 23. And we got 14. And also there's this abbreviated method which sometimes can be important. And September 10th. I know that day leaves 112 days left in the year. Okay, so that's really interesting. So September 10th leaves 112 days left in the year. Again, the person calling in right now, I'll take calls in a moment. It's just I'm going to be doing this decode here for a second, so I don't want you to be on hold too long. But the fact that it leaves 112 days left in the year, Houston equals 112 and Chiefs equals 112. And you might recall a few years ago, Deshaun Watson went on the IR for the season on November 2nd, 11/2. And Andrew Luck was also put on the IR for the season on 11/2. And Andrew Luck equals 112. And he played his high school ball in Houston because his dad used to be on the Oilers, Oliver Luck. So what a perfect day to have both of these teams play. And keep in mind, Super Bowl equals 112. The Chiefs are fresh off the Super Bowl win. Okay, so... And I'm trying to think. I think September 10th in a leap year is the 254th day of the year. Let me check that out real quick. All right, yeah, so September 10th in a leap year is the 254th day of the year. I'm going to note that it's also the 253rd because leap years are weird. It's like in a leap year, you have to pay attention to what day it normally is and the leap year day. That's why leap years make things a little bit trickier. 253 is the 22nd triangular number, big football number, 22 men on the field. And September 10th is the 254th day in a leap year. If you guys hear a lot of food crunching in the background, it's because Sweet Lady's head's right next to the computer. She's gloating eating this good food next to me while I'm working. Anyway. You want to pay attention to your prime number relationships with the date numerology. 59 is the 17th prime, 23 is the 9th prime. The other way you can sometimes look at things, because it could show up in the score, it's a 14 date numerology. 43 is the 14th prime. And 43 is a big football number. On Monday Night Football, you want to pay attention to the acronyms, like MNF. And case in point, a few years ago, I think it was 2 seasons ago, Sunday Night Football, which in the most pure cipher is 12. On Sunday Night Football, it was the Packers versus the Patriots. So Aaron Rodgers, number 12, versus Tom Brady, number 12. Before that game, they literally gave a numerology lesson on the number 12. And I was like, God, talk about putting it in people's face. But the thing about Aaron and Tom both having 12, only one of their names has a 12 connection, and it's Tom. Tom's 12, and don't forget, Tom made his debut in the 2001 season, September 23rd, 12 days after September 11th, Patriot Act, Patriots, news, sports. Again, Mo Lewis, the New York Jets, sacked number 11, Drew Bledsoe, and then came in Tom 12 days later. But, again, when you realize things like that, you're like, oh, wow. Because realize with all the online betting, you can do real-time betting. If you're torn on an outcome and then you see something like that, because a lot of times if you're watching the TV broadcast, they will put some number on the screen, and maybe it's the number that you've been researching, and you're like, okay, they just put that number in front of my face. Now I know that's the riddle. Real-time betting, you can still get good odds once the games have already started, moments before the game. That's the thing about the online age. So anyway, let me make sure I'm on the right screen that you guys can see all this. Okay, we are. Okay, so anyway, MNF has this gematria. 33 is, there's so many 33 riddles on Monday Night Football, and remember Patrick's 33 just became the 33rd quarterback to win a Super Bowl. These are the kind of things you want to think about. MNF 33, again, I just write down all the numbers, 15, 48, 12. And here's what you know. It's going to have their head-to-head record here with the Houston Texans. So this is going to be the 11th game between these teams. They're tied right now 5-5. So I'm going to write this down in my notes. So 11th game between teams, tied 5-5. I got to figure out what the hold on. Who was at home? So the Chiefs are at home in this game, so they're definitely going to be the favorites, defending champions at home. Chiefs at home. Let me see what the record is between these teams at home. The way to find that out on this website is where it says all games. Click on that. And then, let me see if this still works. Click the win-loss column and then click at. So these are the games at the Houston Texans. So at home, the Chiefs, well, they're 2-2 at home. Now, there is something encouraging about that right there. The Chiefs being 2-2 at home. So this could be the riddle right here. Tied 5-5. Chiefs are 2-2 at home. Here's what jumps out to me about this. And again, I know a lot of the numbers off the top of my head. Kansas City's 32 in the most pure cipher. Chiefs is 32. And when you run the alphabetic order in reverse, Houston's 32. So you could make an argument, right, that Houston could become 3-2 on the road at Kansas City. This is why not all games are equal. There's some games that are just low-hanging fruit. You know, say the date numerology was 32, right? And the Chiefs were going for their 32nd win all-time against the Texans, or their 32nd win at home. Those are pretty much gimmies. It's like, okay, that's what's happening there. They're definitely getting their 32nd win at home in Kansas City against Houston on the 32 date numerology. But as you can see, it's not quite like that, right? Notice there is 23 date numerology. Whoever loses this game is going to be 2-3 in Kansas City. And again, let's type out our gematria here. This is the way I always look at gematria. I look at the team name, Chiefs, 32 in the most pure cipher. Kansas City, 32 in the most pure cipher. And then I look at the whole name. Just like how the Kansas City Chiefs, they just won the Super Bowl. They've now scored 64 points in Super Bowl. They beat 49ers. When you write out 49ers at 64, they did it 64 weeks after Patrick Mahomes beat Len Dawson's 1964 touchdown passing record, while the first black quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl, Doug Williams, is 64 years old. Again, this is how you figure out the patterns and the riddles and you see where it's going. This is why I liked the Chiefs to beat the 49ers and favored them. Okay, now let's do the Texans. So Texans. Texans has the 83 connection, which is the 23rd prime. Houston Texans. Remember, they hosted Super Bowl 51. Houston Texans 51 in the most pure cipher. To start this last season, you might recall the primetime game on Monday Night Football was Drew Brees versus the Texans. And that was another game where I was so mad because I thought I was wrong, because I told everybody that Drew Brees was going to get his 156th win against the Houston Texans, and he did. He did win the game. But if you remember that Saints-Texans game at the beginning of the year, it was crazy. There was like 3 touchdowns or like 3 scores in like the last minute and a half of the game. Like drives like that were 1 play, 2 plays long. It was ridiculous. The sports get more and more ridiculous each year, but Drew Brees did get his 156th career win against the Houston Texans in that primetime game to start the season. Houston Texans did host Super Bowl 51. These numbers play in riddles with these teams, and again, that's why you really do want to pay attention to all 4 ciphers, because if you don't, you might miss what the riddle is. But if push comes to shove, I'd stay on this left side of the cipher board, because that's usually where the riddles are. Okay, so unfortunately their record doesn't give us great clarity, but the fact that, by the way, with regards to 32, that's also a big number with the NFL. NFL has 32 teams, NFL 32. So looking at star players and coaches is another thing you can do. So this site right here, if you type in QB win-loss record, it'll pull up this site, Football DB. If you go there, their stats are very accurate. So let me see. Mahomes. Okay, so Mahomes is 28-8 all time. So this includes his postseason. We're going to want to look at his stats regular season and with the postseason, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, something we didn't talk about tonight, but if you're going to go outside of these base ciphers, the additional cipher you might want to use, it's based on the base ciphers. But with the reduction cipher, there's a rule with S. S is the... Uh-oh, my computer's getting too glitchy. Let me close some windows right here. Computer's dying on me. Give me 1 second here to close some windows so I can breathe a breath of life into this thing. All right, closing windows here. Let me just close a few more windows and we should be a lot better shape than we were a minute ago. All right, I'm still just closing a few more windows here just because the computer, it's just moving so slow, so it's overloaded right now. Okay. Okay, so, all right, so Patrick Mahomes, I was saying he's on 28 wins, and the one other thing that you would want to know about the ciphers, and what happened to my calculator? Did I close it? There's a rule with the 19th letter forwards and backwards. If you ever get this error screen, if you just keep refreshing the screen, it'll usually work. Okay, so in the ciphers, there's a rule with the 19th letter for the reduction ciphers, forwards and reverse. And that's because 19 is the only letter you have to reduce 2 times to get to a single digit. So forwards, S is the 19th letter. And 19 in numerology is 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 is 1 plus 0 is 1. So there's a rule that S can be 10 or 1. We normally just look at it as 1, but the 10 does matter. And if you write out Texans that way, it equals 29. So Mahomes could get his 29th career win by defeating the Texans. I always feel better about it when you don't have to use that rule, but this rule does matter. In reverse, it's H. H is the 19th letter in reverse. So like Houston, for example, is 41 in reverse as opposed to 32. So that's just one other thing you can consider. But Mahomes could get his 29th all-time win against the Texans. And let me look at his regular season stats. Yeah, what's tricky about that is he could get his 9th loss as well all-time because it is a 23-date numerology of the 9th prime. And again, some games are trickier than others. That's why you want to find the games that are just like, again, the rock-solid riddle where you don't feel as iffy about it. All right, let's see. So Mahomes is 15-4 at home all time. I'm just thinking about that. Sometimes, like a second ago, we were saying, Houston Texans equals 156. Like if Mahomes was 15-5 at home all time, you'd have to consider that he could become 15-6 at home. That'd be something to think about. But hold up, I want to pull up Mahomes' regular season record here, and then we'll look at Deshaun Watson too. Let's see. So Mahomes is 24-7 in the regular season. It'll be his 32nd regular season win. There's another 32, right? And I'm feeling that that's the ritual here. His 32nd regular season win, Kansas City 32, Chiefs 32, Houston 32, defending champion of the NFL 32 teams. The Chiefs are probably going to improve to 3-2 at home against Houston in this game. And let's see, he's 11-3 at home in the regular season. I'm just thinking if there's anything with 12-3 or 11-4. All right, let's check out Watson real quick. So Watson's 24-13. It's going to be his 38th regular season game. He's 11-8. 11-8. So I got rid of it. I don't think either of those numbers sync with Chiefs. They don't. One other thing you can consider is also the the full location of where the game's at. Kansas City, Missouri. There was a big ritual with the Chiefs in '74 this year. I'm trying to remember what it was. Okay, but Watson, he's 24-13, 11-8 on the road. We did say how there was the 23-date numerology. So there's a question too that should be answered. Push come to shove, since you can consider the overall record and just the regular season record, I find that the regular season record alone is a lot more important in the regular season, which has a very logical thought to it. So the fact that Watson could get his 9th away loss in the regular season on the 23-date numerology, 23 the 9th prime, that makes good sense. And let me just check his postseason stats here too, Watson. It's going to be his 41st game, 25-15 overall, 11-9. Okay. So the other thing to do with every NFL game is check the coach's stats. So I know how many wins Andy Reid has right now. He just got old 222. This website here, or I don't have it up right now. Or no, this is the right site. Okay, so I'm going to type in Andy Reid right here. And I want to look at Andy Reid, the coach, not the player, not the executive. And let's see. So, again, when you look at his stats here, you see how it says he has 207 wins? That's in the regular season. His postseason wins are over here. He has 15 postseason wins. So you have to combine that for his career wins. So he has 222 wins altogether. Just like how February 2nd equals 222. He got his 222nd career win in the Super Bowl. And with Kansas City right now, he has 77 wins in the regular season and 5 in the postseason. I like that right there. That means he can get his 83rd win over the Texans. And understand, 83 is a big number at the NFL. Texans equals 83. Football equals 83. So 83 is the 23rd prime. Perfect day to get his 83rd career win. Perfect opponent to do it over the Texans. And let me go back and look at his stats one more time. Let me see what his losses are. So Andy Reid's on 35 losses with the Chiefs, 5 in the postseason. He's on 40 losses. You could make an argument they get his 41st loss because Houston does have that 41 connection when you use the rule with the 19th letter in reverse. But to me, that's a lot weaker riddle. I'd rather just stick with those. I'll always take what's in those 4 base ciphers over something like that, which is a little bit more of a stretch but still relevant. So notice Andy Reid had coached 112 games with the Chiefs in the regular season the year he wins the Super Bowl. Again, Chiefs 112, Super Bowl 112. Like we talked about the ESPN story that coded Chiefs Super Bowl before the season began, where the headline was 112. Those were things we were talking about last year. I'd forgotten that piece. But keep in mind, this will be Andy Reid's 113th regular season game. Big number of the Scottish Rite Walter Camp, credited with American football. And speaking of which, I meant to tell you, football with the alphabetic order equals 83. They say the 1983 draft class was the best ever. And I think, Walter. The American football is credited to Walter Camp, who has that 83. And then Camp's also got the 33 in it, like masonry. Okay, so I still need to check out the Texans coach's record. And right now I cannot think who the Texans coach. Is it Bill O'Callahan? Is that right? Bill O'Brien. That's it. Bill O'Brien's that's his name. Bill O'Brien. Okay, Bill O'Brien. He is 52-44 in the regular season. It's going to be his 97th regular season game. The playoffs, if his all-time record is 56-48. The only argument I can make there is MNF has that 48 connection. You might recall 2 years ago on the MNF doubleheader, the Jets beat the Lions with 48 points, and then the Rams beat the Raiders with 33 points. These numbers play a lot on MNF. The only thing I could say in Bill O'Brien's favor is that he could potentially stay on 48 losses on Monday Night Football, but staying on a number is never the best riddle. I prefer that Andy Reid can get his 83rd career win with the Chiefs, because again, he used to coach the Eagles too. But he can get his 83rd win, open up the football season over the Texans. And also, I'm filling that 32 thing more with the Chiefs, because 32 is more their number than Houston's number. Houston really likes that 31 more than they like 32. And again, Patrick Mahomes' 32nd win. But there's more stones you can turn over. Sometimes over-analyzing can hurt you. But riddles like this, the season opener, always go back and look at when these teams played each other last, which was the playoffs this year. And let me see. Chiefs, Texans, playoffs box score. This was the game, 31-51, 82 points. Crazy comeback. The Texans were up 21-0. And the Chiefs put up 28 in the third quarter. This game was January 12th. So see what I mean? 1-1-2. Now they're going to play each other on the day leaving 112 days left in the year. The two cities that have the 112 connection. This is why even if you don't like to gamble, just by understanding this knowledge, you can see the way they script the games. It's undeniable how they do it. So let's see how many days it is from January 12th to September 10th, the day they open it up. January 12th, 2020 to September 10th, 2020. They'll probably say everybody caught coronavirus at the game on September 11th. Well, that's interesting. It's a span of 243 days. And remember, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl in the 243rd year of the nation's existence, which matters because this was another thing we were looking at with the Chiefs. When you write out Native American, it's 243. So this game's a span of 243 days later, more that Native American symbolism with the Chiefs as the defending champions in the time of the Great Plague on the United States, where it hasn't seen a plague like this since the natives were wiped out with smallpox, which is not an accident. That's how they do this stuff. But just thinking, because I'm a little bit rusty, I haven't decoded some games for a few months, I'm thinking, what pieces am I missing right now that I could look at? Yeah, again, what wasn't helpful about this series is just how their head-to-heads locked up at 5-5 right now, and even 2-2 in Kansas City. Usually, you get a more clear narrative, but I know what else we could look at. It's good to measure from the star players' birthdays to the date of the game. So, if I remember right, I think Patrick Mahomes has a April birthday. Let me see. I know Deshaun Watson's birthday is in September. Or maybe both their birthdays are September. Oh, I know what it was. Patrick Mahomes was named the Madden cover athlete last year in April. And Mahomes was 115, and he did it. That story was the 115th day of the year. So the game will actually be 7 days before Mahomes' 25th birthday. And I think Deshaun Watson's got a September birthday too. September 14th. They're almost the same age. 4 days before his 25th birthday. But yeah, out of everything that I saw there, I favor the 32 riddle with Kansas City just because I know that number plays stronger for them than Houston from historically doing this. And then out of the coach riddles, I like that Andy Reid could get that 83rd win with the Chiefs over the Texans. So, and then again, just the common sense thing is, well, the Chiefs are one of the best teams in the NFL right now. They just won the Super Bowl and they're at home. So, I mean, depending on what the line is how I would decide if I even want to play a game like this. If they make it so that you had to bet $200 on the Chiefs to win 100, I would just let this game go. And I might play like a small parlay in that case with the Houston's upset just because there's a chance that the 32 could go in their favor. And the way I would do that is just like a $5 bet on Houston because they have a small chance, but the payout would be there, and then mix it up with the games that look strong from that week. So it's one of those bets where like, if they lose, it's only $5, I don't care. But if I put together a well-structured parlay where Houston has a chance, and so there's others, because again, if you go through and decode the whole NFL week, which is what I historically do, you'll find the games with the low-hanging fruit. The one where it's like the team can pick up the win over the opponent on the date numerology. You know that game's golden. And in some weeks, your best weeks will be where there'll be several games that line up like that. Maybe you'll get 5 or 6 games that just look golden, and that's where you can really, bring it home. And the way I got this whole Patreon page rolling with the sports was by putting out that 6-game parlay at the start of the NFL season 2 years ago that hit. People are like, holy crap, 6-game parlay, that's really hard to do. But just at the start of that season, we had those 6 games that just had really strong riddles, and those are the ones you ride. So we'll talk about this more. The NFL season's still a ways off, but if you want to practice with this, go through that first week of the schedule, and again, go through these steps. Get the date numerology, look at the head-to-head. Again, if you can find a series where a team can pick up like their 32nd win, or let me think real quick here about the date numerology. Where did I write my notes at? Okay, so that game's Thursday, so that Sunday would be September 13th. So you do your date numerology for September 13th in the Monday night game, and then you would just go through and see if you can pull out that type of thing. All right, let me get this caller. They've been trying to call in.
Yeah, I'm just trying to jog your memory. You were talking about a 74 ritual, and then I remember the October 6th shooting. Maybe that's tied to the season opener as well?
Well, okay, so those shooting rituals with Kansas City were hilarious, and yeah, those were directly connected to the Super Bowl as we covered. I mean, the first one was like, what, 5 wounded, 4 dead, and the name of the bar was 120, and it was a span of 120 days from the shooting. And then
I just looked at it, and I sent the link in the chat. I think maybe check the span of days to the season opener.
I think the 74 one that I was thinking of last year was maybe... Did Kansas City play in Mexico last year?
No, I don't know, man.
It was like Aztec Stadium, and it equaled 74, and there was some 74 riddle in that game.
Well, I'm like one of these new guys trying to get this down, so I'm just trying to jog your memory.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs played in Kansas City, and maybe like Andy Reid got his 74th win. There was some 74 riddle that came down with the Chiefs last year, and then again Kansas City, Missouri 74. But the point is, you just see how the numbers come together. I remember that it was the game in it could have been this year or 2 years ago, but yeah, there was some 74 riddle that's on the tip of my tongue. So.
All right. So can you look up what the current odds are for the game right now, and then maybe propose what would be a good?
Well, I wouldn't worry about what the odds of the game are right now, man. They could change so much by the time game time rolls around because Deshaun Watson could be out, Patrick Mahomes could be out. So again, these are
this is about the long-term agenda stuff. So that's what I was saying.
Okay, so right now, check this out. Right now, Kansas City is a 10.5-point favorite for this game. So yeah, they're not going to be a good payout, the Chiefs, on this one. And the over/under is 55, which is the 10th triangular.
So maybe the over/under is what we would bet on. That would be the clear signal, right?
Okay, so here's a good thing to think about. This game's on the 10th, right? And they've set the over/under at 55, which is the 10th triangular number, which means if you had 1 through 10, it's 55. It's also the 10th Fibonacci number, which is covered in Gematria lesson number 2. There's this strong relationship with 55 and 10. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game ended up being a 10-point spread. Maybe the Chiefs don't quite cover that 10.5.
Yeah, because, the point system, too, that's another step between these new people and betting. That's, my biggest thing. I usually just bet the straight up, but you're missing out on the odds,
Right. Well, sometimes there's a really great riddle where we can see that a team's going to cover. But, again, the best way to use this knowledge is to find your strong picks for the week and put together a small bet with a parlay with the strong picks, and then you don't really have to worry about the over-under. If you get the winners right, and you have a 4-team parlay, man, that's going to pay.
Up. Don't even worry about the points.
But there will be times when a spread is strong. Like, for example, let's say it's a 23-date numerology, right? And a team is going for their 9th win all time against another team. 23 is the 9th prime, and maybe that team that's going for the 9th win is an 8.5-point favorite. Man, I would bank on them winning by 9 and getting that 9th win on the 23-date numerology because 23, the 9th prime, the prime number pairings are really strong together. So
what you're saying is there's a riddle in those points spread right now, the odds right now.
Just how they've even set it up right now, yes, there is. Yes, because the over-under's at 55, which has a very strong relationship with 10, and they're saying Kansas City's a 10.5-point favorite. Now, this is going to change by the time the game comes. I mean, this could be completely different by the time this game rolls around. So I would never bet on a game. How many months out are we? We're 4 months out. I would never bet on a game 4 months out.
Okay. All right, yeah, because that's the whole thing. It's like we don't even know how to make smart bets to begin with,
Right. Always wait as close to game time as you can to bet because you want as much information as possible. And like I said, so often when you turn on and watch the pregame, they might be throwing some huge number out in front of your face. They might be talking about how
2-hour long show before the game starts.
Right, and they could literally do a story, because so often we talk about, because when we do our live stream historically, we do it in the morning, and then we'll be laughing, because in the pregame, they'll be like, Patrick Mahomes just donated a $32,000 Honda according to this coronavirus survivor. And you're like, oh my God, $32,000, they just had to throw that out there, and we've been talking about 32 all morning. So, and then you're like, okay, they're definitely going with that 32 ritual in favor of the Chiefs.
Yeah, well, you've already uncovered so much 32, and, the record, Patrick Mahomes, or the head-to-head one.
Here, let's look at funny things. So let's just go through the spreads for what they've already set. So Seahawks and Falcons, this is hilarious. And it's hilarious every single time. The Seahawks, the only Super Bowl they've ever won is Super Bowl 48. Seahawks equals 48, Atlanta equals 48. What have they set the over-under for this game at? 48. So what you want to do is this over-under is going to move. It's going to move depending on where the money goes. So you're going to pay attention. If this goes up, if the over and under goes up to 50, I would bet the under. It is very, very likely that this game's going to finish at 48 points. It is very likely.
Okay, that's a really good, keen observation. Okay, so if we see this 55 move down, what would you suggest?
God, I got to think about... Okay, so think about this. Think about this. What did the Chiefs just win?
with Andy Reid to the 54 Super Bowl.
They just won Super Bowl 54, right? They just won Super Bowl 54. And I should have measured from how many days it is from the Super Bowl to this game, because that they just put this stuff in front of your face. If the Chiefs beat the Texans 34-20, and I think, you know what's funny? I think Texans equals 34-20.
You know, I was
it does.
thinking about maybe a
it does.
I was thinking about a 666 ritual involved in this, maybe 666 days before the season opening.
Look, this is a potential score for this Chiefs game. The Chiefs could cover that spread and win 34-20 for 54 combined points, and Andy Reid could get his 83rd career win. You'll see stuff like this all the time when you know the code. So you'll just be laughing. You'll be like, oh my God, they beat them 34-20, and Andy Reid got his 83rd win, and Texans equals 83-20-34. And then you'd have your tribute to Super Bowl 54. So,
can we bet $10 on that scenario? Combining that as a parlay. I know there's.
Here's the best way to do this stuff. Again, with all the online betting, there's all this real-time betting now, right? There's all this real-time betting. So. Always wait closer to game. There's no reason to bet $10 right now. You're going to have to wait 4 months. And between now and then, you're going to have all sorts of better things to bet on, and you'll wish you had that $10 back in your pocket to bet on something else. Just wait until the game comes around. But when you're doing the real-time betting, prop bets will come up, or how many more points are going to be scored. Maybe it's 27-20. Texans are at midfield, right? And there's a prop bet right now for the game to be for a final score. And you're saying, I bet you the Texans are going to turn it over here or punt, and I bet you the Chiefs are going to score one more time and win 34-20. That would be a prop bet that would be available that would pay huge odds. So you could just take advantage of it in the moment. Or, for example, a prop bet comes up and it says, the over-under's at 54.5 for where this game's going to finish with points scored. And you're like, I'm pretty sure they're going with the Super Bowl 54 tribute. Take that under on that prop bet. So you can use this knowledge in real time.
You should be saying this stuff in the notes too. Put up the scenarios that you're thinking of. Because eventually we're going to get more information about it. And then if we can get some crazy information because it's really blatant already, maybe we can, really capitalize on, this upcoming NFL opener.
Sure. Well, we will, man, and we've done it year after year. So, and again, for all of you who are new here, you can go back and watch older videos. They're all archived on here, and you can just watch and see what we do and the things we discuss. You can dominate with position players in fantasy. You can figure out, for example, the word tight end equals 87, right? It's Monday Night Football. It's a tight end. It's 87 days after his birthday. You know he's going to have a game. It is this way. You'll see how often this stuff happens, and you'll be amazed at how many how many tight ends in the league wear the number 87. But
I know. There's a $1 to win $100,000 leagues. If we do the fantasy stuff you're talking about.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of ways to put this knowledge to the test. It helps a ton with fantasy, and anyway.
I'll let you continue, man.
Okay. All right, man. Appreciate the questions.
Well.
All right. So what's interesting is, how we were talking about the skull and bones thing earlier? God, there was some ritual that was just done with Patrick Mahomes and somebody who just died. And it was 202 days from Patrick Mahomes' birthday. And I'm just seeing that... Or, shit, hold on. No, you guys, I'm screwing up. My fault. I got the wrong thing in here. Oh, man, look at that. From the Super Bowl to the start of the season is a span of 222 days after Andy Reid just got his 222nd career win. God, man. You could make an argument that he could stay on 222 wins, but again, I'm digging that. I'm digging that 83rd win over the Texans. All right, I wanted to go through these over-unders and just show you how funny they'll be, but what's up, New York?
What's good, Zach? I just got a question. This is just regarding those that are new to this betting lifestyle, just like myself, that want to put this knowledge of Gematria into use, like a backfire tactic to financially benefit off of their own games.
Right.
The rigging numerical scripts they got going all over the place in sports. So, so as a majority of the U.S. and how they got these betting, they prohibit the betting in a lot of states. What is your take on what side of choice I would have to use?
Well, for example, I'm in Washington State where it's completely illegal. We have like some of the most laws against it, and I chose not to do it because I'm already under the watchful eye. I don't want to give them one more reason to send an FBI agent to my door.
Exactly, yeah.
But there are plenty of people in this community that are in states where it's illegal and they do bet online. So, I mean, you got to use your own discretion. But if you already have legal problems, and I mean, that's a judgment call. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but the good news is there are a lot of states that are ending their restrictions. Even Washington State right now is debating on making online gambling legal. So it's not too far off where we probably all will be able to gamble. So.
All right. That sounds good, man. I appreciate you and everything you got going on, man.
You're welcome, man.
You have a good night, man.
All right, yeah, you too. Take care. Okay, now look at this. Even if you're new here, you've probably heard me talk about New York, the 39 number, and how every single Super Bowl won by a New York team, 4 by the Giants, 1 by the Jets, they all come back to the number 39. Look at what the over-under is for the 2 New York teams, the Jets and the Bills, 39.5. You know, I would be willing to take the under here. I won't be surprised if the score is right at 39 points. They do it so often in these New York matchups. Again, it's not Lock City, but New York and 39 is just so huge. New York and the most pure ciphers, 39. The abbreviation NY is 39. When you run the alphabetic order in reverse, NYC is 39. If you write out New York, NY, it's 39. It's the Empire State, 39. Again, every single New York Super Bowl one comes back to 39. The least obvious of them is when the Jets won 16-7, like 167, the 39th prime. But it's just comical. New York and 39 is just such gold in sports. And, of course, the over-under's at 39.5 points. What else would it be at? Oh, my God. It just never ends. So look at this. The Bears and the Lions, right? 44. This game's in Detroit. Detroit equals 44. Again, you'll never look at lines for sports the same again. It's like this for every sport. You will just laugh your ass off at how they set these lines, and you'll understand how Vegas is really so good at predicting the games and where to set the line. It's because it's all rigged by this code of Gematria. So the over-under for the Detroit game is at 44 points in Detroit. Now, when teams have an overlap number, you see how Detroit's 37 in the most pure ciphers? So is Chicago. Chicago's 37, and you know how a second ago I was telling you about how in reverse the 19th letter is H? If you use that rule for the 19th letter with Chicago, it's also 44. So the over-under's there at 44. Again, I'd be more inclined to go with the under in this game based on the way these teams play, and as much as 37 shows up with Chicago and Detroit, but 44 plays too. So this one's a little bit more tricky. If the money went to the over on this game, I would definitely be more inclined to take the under. But what sucks about this one is the Vegas money's probably going to go on the under because the logical thinking is the Bears, the Lions, they don't unless there's all this hype for their offense in the offseason. We'll have to see. But the over and under, you know, if this climbed to the over, I would definitely take the under. So this game could also be a push. I wouldn't be surprised if you had 44 points scored in this game. Packers and Vikings, 46.5. Minnesota's got the 47 connection if you use the rule with S. Packers got the capital G like the 47 degrees on the Masonic compass. Man, as much as also, these teams would definitely have more than 47 wins against each other. Sometimes the over and under is related to the win outcome that a team can pick up. So, like, for example, if you looked at this game and you saw that the Bears and Lions probably have more than 44 wins against each other, but sometimes you'll see, like, the number that you're looking at for that game, you'll be like, oh, wow, the Bears are going for their 44th win against the Lions, 44 date numerology, and they got the over-under at 44. I know that's the number for this game. So you'll see that, too. But the Bears and Vikings, they both got a little bit of a connection to 47. Again, Minnesota is 47. This is why you have to pay attention to that rule with the 19th letter. And again, if you can just do basic math in your head, you know in reduction, if there's an S in the word, you can add +9 for each S. So like if there was multiple S's in the word, like a word like ass, for example, just because it has 2 S's, ass could also be 21 in the reduction cipher if you add +9 for each S, right? 3 + 9 + 9 is 21. And then in reverse, remember it's H. So like a name like Hector. Hector, if you use the rule for H, would be 39. Again, normally stick with what's in these 4-base ciphers, but you do got to be aware of that rule with the 19th letter. Again, I talk about that in Lesson 1. Again, if you're new here and you're trying to do well at sports, take the time to watch Lessons 1 and 2. And you guys can, if you don't have the time to watch the full lesson, you can just stop watching where people call in. But if you got the full time, watch it all. I love this over-under, man. 43. Oh, I see it already, man. Patriots against the Dolphins. Dolphins 43. Football 43. Florida 43. That number comes up a lot with the Dolphins there. 43. And New England's 45. So is Miami. In light of Don Shula. Remember, Shula just died at age 90 on May 4th. The date's going to be written 4-5. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a 45-point game in that Miami-New England game. Who wins it, though, in the post-Tom Brady era is another discussion. So, again, that's where you'd want to look at the head-to-head record. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if 45 showed up in this game. Both teams got the 45 connection. The singular word patriot equals 45, you know. The Patriot Act, the Patriots, New England 45. Hold on, we got a call here. Caller?
Yeah, I was just on the phone with you. Put together a 3-team parlay with the over-under as it looks right now, you know, with $10. Just for us to see, like, you know, this far ahead and see what happens.
Well, like I said, it takes time, man. I got to go through it and do the decode justice.
Yeah. All right, well, just a suggestion. And, you know, maybe for the next video, could you cover the stock market since we're on, you know, gambling?
Well, it's like the other day. The other day I said on May 7th there'd be big vaccine news, right?
Yeah.
And I said about a month before that Moderna, the same one that ended up being the big news, that it was probably going to be the front runner. So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff you can do with the stock market. If you're privy to what's going on in markets and what's going on with economies and what products are hot, you know, and then, again, you can pick out the dates that would correspond with those products and those companies. It is that same way in the stock market. So,
well, yeah, I've been following Chikozi's recent stuff on it, too.
Sure.
And I think it's a really good idea to focus on the stock market. And, you know, since you're moving on from the sports, maybe you can start covering the stock market for your Sunday stuff.
Sure. There's only so many hours in a day, though, man. I'm trying to finish 2 books right now and, you know, keep up with everything else.
But, all right, man, I'll let you continue.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
So, I mean, the thing is, you want to do your decodes due diligence, and it takes some time. You want to check your QBs, you want to check your coaches, you want to check your team wins and loss records. And since I'm already 3.5 hours in and I've been working all day, every single day, I don't want to do all that tonight. We can do another sports decode. We can come back to this. We got plenty of time. But that's what we do all sports season. We decode the entire NFL week in advance, and we look at for the best picks. So odds are I'll probably be doing some NFL full week decodes just because I'm a creature of habit and I do like to decode the NFL. So I'm not going to do that tonight, but we can look forward to that in the future. Okay, so Eagles and Redskins. This line right here is the one that's so far just not screaming out at me about. Let me make sure. Okay, so Redskins. They got the 54 connection, not 45. I know Washington's 40. Okay, in that game, a score I would like in this game that would make a lot of sense is 49. And the reason why is because you got overlap number. Anytime you have an overlap number with teams, it's a good sign. Washington is 49 and Eagles is 49. So just, you know, right now, intuition, I'm thinking that game probably breaks the over-under, but you always want to pay attention to where the public money is, because where they can fudge is with the score. If the money's super lopsided on an over-under, you know, it's just as a rule of habit, it's probably good to go. Vegas always wins, and part of the reason they always win is because it's rigged. So if you see, like, I have a feeling that this game probably will be on the under, just because these teams tend to play defense against each other, but I could see a 49-point game here to start the NFL season. Kim, what's my date numerology for that day? 59. That's a... Yeah, but they do have that 49 overlap. It's not like they combine against each other for 49 points every time, but it happens enough. Okay, Raiders and Panthers. They're in Las Vegas now. They're the Las Vegas Raiders, so they're going to have a new set of numbers to think about. I know Panthers doesn't have a 48. Carolina, I don't know about that one. Let's see. Las Vegas Raiders. What's that look like? Las Vegas is 49. It's going to be their debut game. Can we get a 49 tribute? Remember, 49 is a big number. NFL's 49. America's 49. Scottish is 49. The NFL calls itself America's game. Credited to a Scottish Rite Freemason. So maybe in the debut they put up 49. But the game's not in Vegas. So I'd have to think more about that one. Charlotte NC's got the 47 connection. I'll tell you something else that's hard to believe, but it's true. When these games get set, ESPN will put a temperature up here for these games, like a week in advance, days in advance. And a lot of times the temperature number, it might be the number that you're finding in your decode. And truly, when ESPN puts a temperature number up here, it's like it's almost part of the riddle. Might sound stupid, but just wait until you see. All right, Colts and Jaguars. They're over-under. Let's see. Don't think. Jacksonville 74. Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah, I don't think. Jaguars is 49, which is a 1.5 below that. Colts is 49. And again, just like not all games are equal. Some game the riddle will stand out a lot more than others. So Jaguars does have the 49 connection. That's the closest number to the over-under. Browns and Ravens. Maryland's 47, Ohio's 47. Remember, the Browns, the Ravens used to be the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns lost their franchise and they became the Ravens. Last year, that was one of the easiest major upsets to see last year. When the Browns beat the Ravens last year, we had that one dialed in. Yeah, I was screaming from the rooftop that everybody needed to take that game. A lot of people won big money off when the Browns beat the Ravens. And it was just a beautiful riddle in numbers. And again, it synced up with the history and the names of the teams. Every season, there'll be some really lopsided games where you can get some huge odds. 2 years ago, the best upset of the season was when the Eagles beat the Rams in Los Angeles. That might have even been 3 seasons ago now. But that game was 7-1 odds, and we all knew it as our community. We all that was the big winner. 7-1 odds. You don't get that a lot in the NFL season. But the Eagles had that really good riddle in numbers against the Rams, and they got it done. Thinking about those numbers, though, with that over-under at 49. Ravens, Baltimore. I don't think Cleveland is 48. That's an interesting number because, again, the Ravens did originally come from Cleveland. So Cleveland with the 48. Yeah, that could be where they're going with that one. Baltimore a 9-point favorite. See, Chargers and Bengals. Remember, Los Angeles has that strong 13 connection. 13 has the connection with 45. The Chargers just drafted the Ducks quarterback. Ducks 13. What's his name? Can't think of his name right now. But they drafted him on his 45th day of his age. So you'll see 45 show up a lot with the 13 teams like LA. Games in Ohio. Ohio's 47 like Chargers. Again, a lot of times when a team with both teams have a connection to one number, you'll see that number show up a lot. Not every time, obviously, because it's not like every single time these teams score the same outcome. But when the over/under's in that neighborhood, it's a good chance that number pops out. Bucks and Saints. So this will be the battle of Brady and Breeze. New Orleans has the 45-54 connection. Tampa Bay has the 51 connection. Yeah, that one's tricky because New Orleans 45 and 54 plays a lot, but that over-under is right between those two. Cardinals and 49ers. Phoenix is 46. They technically play in Glendale now. 49ers play in Levi's Stadium. The names of the stadiums matter too. I am being kind of lazy on my decoding right now. I could look at also the stadium, but Levi's Stadium. Remember when the 49ers hosted Super Bowl 50? San Francisco's 50, but it was the 46th Super Bowl in the modern era, and Levi's Stadium's 46. And there were some big rituals in that game with the number 199, which is the 46th prime number. So I'm just thinking, okay, Phoenix is 46, Levi's Stadium 46, the over-under just a half a point shy of 46. The season opener in Levi's Stadium, that could make some sense right there. I see the LA Rams have a new logo. LA Rams, Dallas Cowboys, Dallas 49. Is this the new stadium? They weren't playing in this before, were they? This SoFi Stadium? Let me just see the numbers on that. But wait, is this game in Dallas? No, this game. Ah. Huh. No, SoFi Stadium. Yeah, watch where these over-unders move to, too, because, again, they're here now, but they will change by game time, that's for sure. Again, we're looking 4 months out, but there are some gems on the board, like New York and 39. Okay, Steelers and Giants. A big number with the Steelers a lot is 50. Pittsburgh's 50, and Steelers, if you use the rules... Hold on. Pittsburgh is 50. That over-under is not far from there. Steelers, if you use the rule... Well, Steelers is also 50 if you run it in reverse. So it's interesting that game is... The over-under is just 3 points off 50. This is Monday Night Football. You know what? In light of this being MNF, like I said earlier, 48 shows up a lot in Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football's 48. And... there is one other numerology rule that I very rarely ever use, but you can use the master numerology in the reduction cipher. So, for example, K is the 11th letter. So K is reduced to 2 in reduction. K is 2, but there is a rule also with reduction where you don't have to reduce the master number. So if K is 11, then New York becomes 48, kind of like MNF. And that over-under is just 1 point below 48. So, again, I very rarely use the master numerology when I'm sports decoding, but it is something to be mindful of in this case, just because 48 and MNF does play. So, and you got a Monday Night Football doubleheader here. The Broncos, 41.5 points on the over-under. That's tricky because Broncos is 32 in the most pure cipher, but it does have that 1S in it, so it could also be 41. And, Denver and Broncos are both 32. That number shows up a lot with that team as well. So just thinking about that, 41.5, and then Tennessee, they're 47 and 34, so they kind of straddle that over-under. Titans has the 43 connection, like Colorado. Colorado and Titans both 43. This 43 number plays a lot with the Titans. Big number with the Titans. So that's not out of the question. A 43-point game in this one because of the Colorado's connection to 43, and as much as 43 in the Titans shows up. Those MNF numbers show up so often in Monday Night Football. You'll see how often like the halftime score is at 33 points. But again, what you want to do in these games is do the due diligence. Look at the team's head-to-head record. Look at the quarterback records. Look at the coach records. The best thing that you can get in the NFL, like what's as close to gold as you can get in the NFL, is if the coach and the quarterback can pick up their career win that syncs with the opponent. Or sometimes it'll be the loss too. If they can both pick up the loss that goes with the opponent, that's really good too. Those riddles very rarely fail. So, just to throw one out here, earlier we were talking about how Andy Reid could get his 83rd win against the Texans. Like if Mahomes was going for his 34th career win as well, then you would just know you were golden. We didn't have that in that game, but you will see how that comes up when the coach and the quarterback aligns versus the opponent. That's what you want to see. So, and again, you guys, now that you have the skills, you can go through and take the time. You have plenty of time to practice right now. You can go through, do the date numerology for these games too. Again, something else that's really encouraging is when the date numerology has a value and the team has a Gematria value, and you see that win or loss number can be picked up against that opponent. And within the NFL, it could be in the team's all-time head-to-head record, or it could be the quarterback picking up that number, or the coach. And if you ever run into the scenario where, like, say, Russell Wilson of the Seahawks can get the right win number, and say the coach of the Falcons, Quinn, could get the right number against the Seahawks, well, in that case it might be tricky because Quinn came from the Seahawks. He used to be the assistant coach there before he went to the Falcons. But what I was going to say is, like, if there's a good riddle for a quarterback on one team and a coach on the other, that situation is a little bit dicey, but more often than not, it's going to go in the favor of the quarterback in the NFL. A caller earlier pointed out that he likes college sports because most things are driven through the coach, which is true. So that's an advantage in college. There's less stuff to look at. Almost everything is coach-driven or team head-to-head win and loss record driven. But normally quarterbacks trump coaches in the NFL. Not always. They say it's a quarterback league, so remember that. They tell you that. But yeah, a lot of these over-unders, like again, Seahawks and Falcons. Seahawks equals 48, Atlanta 48. That over-under's at 48 right now. There is a very strong possibility this game ends at 48 points. So watch where that over-under goes. If it goes low, then take the over. If it goes above, take the under. And New York and 39, man. You'll never look at New York sports the same again. They do riddles with 39 in New York all the time. It's hilarious. So, and also just word to the wise. And the people who follow me know this is true. For whatever reason, on Sundays, morning games seem to be a lot more consistent than afternoon games. And I question why this is. Part of me wonders if, like, in the afternoon games, if Vegas is, like, shaking things up a little bit and maybe trying to get back something that didn't go right in the morning. But I always prefer the morning games to the afternoon games. And, yeah, so we can leave it there. You got a lot of meat in this this presentation, and again, put your skills to the test. If you guys want to call in future lessons and say, hey, I decoded this game and get my feedback on what I think, I'm happy to do that. Later this year, I'll decode them myself, but I'm not in any rush 4 months out. So tonight's just about getting your feet wet, helping you understand the knowledge, what to look for. And for the skeptics, again, now that you have the eyes to see with this knowledge, you can just pay attention and just watch what happens. I guarantee you're going to see how the games are scripted again and again and again. All right, you guys, we'll leave it there. And I'll see you in class next week. And for the people who asked me to give them homework, I know I did say I could do that last week, but I was just thinking, if I give you guys homework, I don't really have a lot of free time, so to go over homework, and I don't have the time to do it right now. If you guys want to do your own homework, go out and practice the knowledge. We talk about things each week. Practice decoding the story, or just get comfortable with the knowledge. Show yourself that you can use it. And yeah, I got to limit myself on what I can do. So I don't have time to go over people's homework. I just realized that. And apologies if that's disappointing, but there just aren't enough hours in the day. So we'll leave it there, you guys. Again, appreciate all of you. If you haven't downloaded the book, remember, just scroll down the Patreon page to just past the lessons. Scroll down, ignore the trolls, Don't let the trolls waste your time. And find this post right here. Letters and Numbers ebook. Download the one that ends .pdf. Save it somewhere safe. And read it in your spare time. But, you know, reading that, watching these first 2 lessons back here, Gematria School Lesson 1 and 2, important information to know there as well. So, all right, you guys. Have a great rest of your evening, your day, depending on where you are. And until next time.